Looks after the play fake, showing his great athleticism. He's going to take it all the way for his third touchdown of the game. 78 yards.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
May looking, guns it in the end zone, touchdown, Carolina. Bryson Nesbitt.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
2nd and 5. Hennigan's going to keep it. A little RPO. Out to the tight end. Bruce scored. Bruce scored for the end zone. All he does is what?
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
On the right hip and now to the left of Spencer Rattler. Quick throw, intercepted. Jeremiah Trotter heading for the end zone. Touchdown, Clemson.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
2nd and 13. Rodgers taken down again. Harold Perkins, the true freshman.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
It is great to be back in our studio. I hope everybody had a chance to enjoy and also understand, of course, the greatness of Memorial Day for those who fought and lost their lives to fight for our country and freedom. Yesterday, we took a break. We appreciate it. I came in the studio for just a little bit on Thursday, and Jack McKenzie and Paul Catalina were in the middle of more wires and stuff that you would ever want to see, rewiring and fixing some things, even here on the set. So we appreciate them for doing that. Back is Graham and Emery and Levi and Garrett, and of course Jack as well. Craig Smoak to my right, Paul Catalina to my left. Big 12 and SEC meetings going on this week, and to me, in fact, Dennis Dodd will join us at 3:30. It's almost as if this is the tease. Then media days next month, and then August, everything starts with football practice.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what big news comes out. I mean, obviously, there's debate in the SEC over 8 or 9 games, and we'll get into that in a second. There's more and more, buzz around Colorado being the team that could possibly leave the Pac-12. Again, I'm not going to jump fully into that lake until, we're told to, but it's getting more and more, and the non-denial, denial, none of those things are really sounding all that, half-hearty right now. So, yeah, it remains to be kind of interesting what will happen here in this next few days.
Yeah, it's a little more than nothing, Paul.
Yeah.
I think that's what's become clear. It's a little more than nothing. We're trying to, we're told, scolded. No, it's not nothing. What are you talking about? Nothing. It's not a whole lot of not a nothing. But yeah, I mean, that's certainly an interesting storyline coming out of the Big 12 meetings. I mean, Dodd had his report on, just kind of what the scuttlebutt is, and it'd be interesting to hear some of what he has to say here coming up in just a little bit. But yeah, Colorado, there's a lot of talk about them right now, and you had the comments, was that their athletic director last week, Rick George? There was kind of a middle-of-the-road stance that if you wanted to take it a certain way, you could. But quite frankly, if you took it for what it was, hey, we're leaving the door open. We like where we are. We wouldn't mind living here for a few more years, but the door is cracked open in case we do need to exit out of here. That's how it read to me, and I think that's how it read to most people who didn't really, try to perceive any bias in it. So, yeah, Colorado's, a hot topic right now. I don't know how much there is really to buy into anything imminent, or if this is, posturing by Colorado. Perhaps they're trying to throw their weight around a little bit and feel important. I mean, we really don't know in that regard, but that will, hopefully find some more clarity this week. And then, as you mentioned with the SEC, a lot of debate about the schedule, and I get why there's debate, but I really don't get why there's debate. I mean, I do and I don't. I mostly don't, though, because it just seems to me that having the same number of games as everybody else, and, doing it the way that everybody else is doing it would just seem to be the way to go. But I understand that, there's people barking about money. But, Greg Sankey kind of told Georgia, hey, quit your barking. You don't really have a great case here for why you're barking. And I thought that was very interesting that he kind of put them in their place. Not like, hey, Georgia, I'm scolding you, but his comment was just like, it shut it down. And so that's interesting to keep tracking. I sure hope they land on 9 games when all is said and done. I think just the rivalry aspect of this, the 1 versus 3 opponents, it just doesn't make sense to stay at 8 games so that you can have a couple more teams get bowl eligibility, because honestly, that's really all you're fighting over. And I understand there's that money piece as well, but that's a little bit more complicated than just, hey, we play one more game, we all automatically get more money. There's other things that have to,
can't
occur.
some decisions be made where it doesn't mean you're going to get more
You
money?
just automatically get money right away in your pocket. Yeah.
Well, one thing about the schedule, and Sankey is, it seems as if he wants the 9 games. We're about to show you, not yet, but a bunch of different tweets. We'll also have Jeff Schultz from theathletic.com, who wrote a column today about the SEC and their decision for 9 games, or to keep it, at least for now, to kick the can down the road.
And in my opinion of this, and I told you guys this last night when we were kind of talking about how we were going to, approach the segment, is, look, I've been told that the SEC, swings the biggest stick of everybody, right? Like, that's what they tell me, that it just means more, right? It just means more. It just means more. And then when they come to like, oh, it means more, it means more. Okay, we'd like one more SEC game on everybody's schedule. They're like, well, it doesn't mean that much more. Let's not get crazy here. But where it's so much harder because it does mean more. Well, guess what? You guys chose that when you decided to put SEC patches on your chest and fly that flag. So no one is going to have sympathy for you in this, especially now that there's a 12-team playoff.
Well,
it's not going to hurt you as much as it would if we were, back in the other days.
Even Sankey has said that the amount that would cost perhaps bowl eligibility when you're going to have, 16 teams is going to be minimal. Let's throw up some of these right now. This is from Brett McMurphy. Asked about the benefits of a 9-game schedule, opportunity to play secondary rivalries every year instead of every other year. Those are huge games. Amount of passion, league games draw. Said the decision will not be money-driven, and the league at the forefront of college athletics does not stand still. Did not say he favored 9 games, but made a compelling case for the SEC to increase it from 8 to 9 league games. Now, number 2. Here are some other comments from Brandon Marcello, who will join us tomorrow from 247. Greg Sankey is ready to speak up, tell SEC members which model he prefers, but that doesn't mean leadership will vote this week on whether to move to 9 games, setting the scene in Destin at the SEC spring meetings, which have begun. Here's another one, a response to that from Adam Rittenberg. The Pac-12 went to 9 games in 2006. The Big 12 went to the entire conference everybody plays after A&M and Missouri left, and then the Big Ten in 2016. Some will cite a lack of national titles in those leagues, which is very true. The SEC has won titles. The teams that won would still have won 9 SEC games. Georgia, A&M have played 1 time since 2009. Stop the nonsense. Here is Peter Burns and his response to that. The SEC has never missed the college football playoff with an 8-game conference schedule. If when you remove divisions, you can rotate the schools much better than the previous setup. Why remove flexibility and add guaranteed loss for half of the league unless literally payoff is worth it? And then finally, back to what Adam Rittenberg wrote. Former Big Ten Commissioner Jim Delaney told me, this is 12 years ago, we don't expand to play each other less. We expand because we like to play the teams and the schools that are involved in the conference. It also gives us a clearer sense of a champion by having more competition, not less.
Well, there is one of the first things I've ever agreed with Jim Delaney about. So, yeah, it's true. Like, you're doing all this and you're making the conference bigger, and the SEC has done that better than anybody. They've done it, but like nobody that the SEC has added. To me, I know Missouri, has this kind of lost, decade in there, and maybe A&M to some extent too was calculated by like the Rutgers and Maryland thing of we're just going to try to get these TV markets. So that didn't really make the Big Ten all that much stronger when it came to matchups on television. But for the SEC, it really did. And they've made great choices. Texas and Oklahoma, if you're adding schools, that's great choices. So why would you, based on what Jim Delaney said over a decade ago, want to do that less if you're going to expand? And Greg Sankey also said another thing. He said money doesn't lead, money follows. So while they may not get money in 2025 for their 9-game schedule in 2024 necessarily, in 2030 they will, because all of a sudden you've got all these better games that you're giving to your television partner, ESPN, and you've enhanced the value of your contract long term because the ratings will be there.
Yeah, I mean, I think here's the exact quote from Sankey, and you had the main part of it. This is what I was referring to when he, kind of countered what Georgia had to say. I said, money follows. It doesn't lead. If all you do is chase money, then you make really bad decisions. The money doesn't just come from one source. If all we do is one source of revenue, then we're at great risk. Ticket sales are an enormous source of revenue. The importance and the value and interest in conference versus conference competition, there's money inherent there without ever talking about media compensation. So basically, Georgia's president came out and said, well, if we're going to do this, we need more money. And he's saying, well, it's just not simply coming from just automatically the TV deal. I mean, you don't think that Georgia having another SEC game is going to sell some more tickets than if they're playing, Weber State? I mean, that's where some of that comes back to you from that. So, I mean, I understand there's a lot of logistics and things and details and all of that, but I would like to see everybody on the same schedule. If everybody's playing 9 games, most teams are playing 9 games that are competing for the same spots, and I feel like the others should play 9 games as well. If everybody else was playing 8 and was playing 9, then the shoe would be on the other foot, and maybe you talk them down to playing just 8 to have more of an even playing field. But the fact that most everybody is playing 9, that are their peers, so to speak, I just feel like it makes the most sense. It's a nice flat comparison, even if you think that the comparison of 9 SEC games is greater than the comparison of 9 ACC games or 9 Big 12 games or whatever. If you want to argue about that, that's fine. But 9 conference games and 9 conference games just makes more sense than 8 versus 9. And your argument being, well, we play harder teams. Well, is that always going to be the case every single year that everybody on your schedule
Even with the fact they have dominated the last 2 decades, it is cyclical. It will become cyclical.
But the way you start to state it, like, well, we're the SEC, that almost leaves you free to do whatever you want and just fall back on that as an excuse for everything that you do. And I don't think that it's always a valid excuse. So I just think from me I like it black and white. Everybody play 9. We have a straight comparison there, and we have better games to watch than what we would get otherwise. But I understand, like I said, that there are other considerations ongoing, and that's why this is a bit more complicated. But I don't, for any reason, if you want to get caught up on money, like Sankey said, and he's a pretty smart guy, you don't chase money. And I definitely don't think Georgia needs to be chasing money or has a need to chase money right now. But I also think that while there is, certainly some things to weigh as far as bowl eligibility, with an expanded playoff, I don't see why this is much of an issue, because you're going to be just fine. If anything, you're still, even with a 9th game, still going to get probably 2 more teams in the playoff every year than you ever did before. But yeah, maybe Missouri doesn't make a bowl game. I don't feel like that's a reason to topple the house of cards for 9 games. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, so there we go. And again, it's a great discussion. It's an absolute great discussion to whether you think they should remain at 8 or 9. And I think the league is split. I really think it sounds like, based on what Sankey has said, based on what reporters have also written, watching a couple of podcasts, that really they're like tied up on this, that on what they might do, either kick the can down the road and or decide to play 9 games. And then, of course, they got to come up with how they do that. Jeff Schultz will join us. He wrote the story today on it. He'll join us at 4:25 as the SEC has begun their meetings in Destin, and the Big 12 will be up at, Greenbrier? Up in West Virginia for their meetings starting. I believe their meetings start tomorrow.
That rivalry piece is a big part of it, too. I mean, if you're Oklahoma or Texas rolling into the SEC, or you're A&M or Alabama, whoever, you have your preferences or you have your teams that you've been playing, and it sure as heck is a lot easier to cover all your bases with 3 guaranteeds instead of just 1. So if you're A&M, you're not guaranteed to play Texas every year in this new configuration necessarily, unless they'd be your 1. Okay, they're your 1, but then that means that you're suddenly not playing LSU probably every year. Mm-hmm. When are you playing Oklahoma? Whereas if you're A&M, you got LSU, A&M, or LSU, Texas, and I don't know who would be there. Would it be? It could be any number, right?
Let's
it
say
could
Mississippi
be
State.
Mississippi State. They've tried to make that, a thing. So you've got that, and boom, guaranteed. There's your 3 big rivalry games, and then you get a sprinkling of the others. Whereas with the 8-game model, you get the one guarantee, and then you get a smattering of the others. I don't know. I just think from a fan perspective, and that's what I'm really looking at it from, is I would much prefer to see them play 9 conference games and see the bigger matchups, because I feel like that's what everything has been building towards, and that what we're told about these super leagues and whatnot is the TV matchups, the brands. We want more big matchups. We want more TV brands going against each other. Well, isn't not going to 9 games the opposite of trying to do just that?
Well, adding a 9th game might give teams like Alabama, whose crossover games are what? Tennessee? Who else are Alabama? I know, like, for example, LSU every year plays Florida. And sometimes whoever might not be playing Florida might play, well, A&M plays South Carolina, or somebody might be playing Mississippi State. And because the SEC, I don't know if this is a pro or con, and the chat room can discuss this as well, is that there are some rivalries that are crossover rivalries within the SEC that, like, for example, when Alabama was playing Tennessee the last 15 years, or let's say 10 or 12, they haven't been quite very good. Well, here they are now. And that's cyclical too. I don't know the answer to it, but it'll be interesting, by the way, to see how it all works out.
Well, and look, to follow up on that, okay, Texas A&M, just in particular, took a big, had to take a big dose of medicine on when Texas came into the conference. Because the whole reason they went to the SEC was because they didn't want to be involved with Texas anymore. And the only benefit to them, really, of having Texas in the conference is their biggest rival that they have. Now, it's not Texas's biggest rival, but they're close. That Texas and OU rivalry, but if you are going to say that everybody only has one common opponent every year, that A&M and Texas aren't going to play every year?
No, and Paxton put that out there. It doesn't look like it might be. And to me, that has to happen.
Yeah.
And to me, Oklahoma, Texas has to happen. I guarantee you, if they got into a room, and the 3 of them, and everyone could not hear each other, who do you want to play every year and continue the relationship? Texas and OU are going to pick each other. And if you're A&M, you have Texas and OU move into your backyard that you had kind of created your own little neighborhood, or trying to. It would not make sense. It's kind of like when the Big 12 formed in '96, that Nebraska and Oklahoma and the conference did not have enough brain power or too much politics involved to continue that rivalry every single year and just make it work.
And Saban's gone the opposite way. He doesn't like their permanent opponents that were proposed. So he's, suddenly, and not suddenly, this happened a while back, but, he was suddenly on the fence and opposed to it. And then, he does something and people will follow. And so I think when he made that decision to suddenly open up about, well, I don't know about this, then a lot of people just glommed on. And, yeah, what Saban said, I think that happens a lot. But I do think it probably also opened up some people's minds to, oh, wait a second, he kind of has a point there if you're not set, and so it's an interesting debate. That's why it's been ongoing for months. That's why it might continue on well past this week. Sankey has said that they would like to get it done, but clearly there are some issues to rifle through, and just based on kind of the straw poll, it seems like right now it would be about even on how that vote would work out. So, I hope they go to 9 just from a fan standpoint. But don't not do it. If you're not going to not do it, then have some valid reasons for it. And I think there's been some semi-valid reasons proposed. But I think the worst absolute reason is the Georgia presidents of, well, show us the money first. I just think that, come on, man. You're not hurting for money. The money's going to come. You're Georgia. That's not going to be a problem for you. But don't disrupt and create this situation because, the money's not already been driven up to your doorstep already. I mean, there's other valid reasons for why.
So, Scotty B, saw your note. We are a family. We appreciate you, but he had a cousin who passed away who was 37 years old, and we are thinking about you. Would have been in 9th grade next year, so thinking about your cousin and the family, Scotty B, we appreciate it. There's a couple of comments here, and I know that Connor Johnson and Conundrum are both, I think Connor's a Pac-12 guy. Connor, correct me if I'm wrong, saying that Colorado has said that the Big 12 is a backup plan.
Yeah, totally.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't think none of those schools want to be in the position they're in. All of them wish they could make a decision now or 3 months ago. However, Colorado donors, the AD, Rick George, as you mentioned, a quote from earlier or during the time last week, and their chancellor have a meeting in Newport Beach, California, California. And this is after last week having some discussions with the Big 12. Teams are having discussions. That was something that when we reported that and others did, that no, they're not. Yes, they are. That doesn't mean they're going to change. But a backup plan means that you're having a backup plan, and you wouldn't need a backup plan if you were happy as hell and 100% committed to the conference that you're in, or the conference committed 100% to you.
Yes, absolutely. The Big 12's a backup plan. If it was the primary plan, we'd already know. I mean, it would be over. If the primary plan was to leave, they could all left right now. But that's certainly not what they're trying to do, because in the end of it, I do think that what's best for college football is you have a strong, just like it was the best for the college football to have a strong and complete Big 12, it's the best for college football to have a strong and good Pac-12. But if that's not possible, then everybody has to start fending for themselves.
Yeah, and there's nothing, on the forefront as far as like anything impending, right? I mean, there's nothing like on the doorstep, just to be very clear on this.
Well, there was this date of May 31st, June 1st. Of course, that now may be changing because of the fact that the Pac-12 media deal, whatever they end up doing, has now been pushed back. It appears into July and maybe August.
Yeah, I was saying like this Board of Regents meeting and all that, like that's not – I mean, there's a lot of people that read into those things, and to my knowledge, that has nothing to do with realignment or expansion.
I don't know for sure.
Okay,
I just
didn't
know that they're meeting, and it was
that.
a week after they had discussions about their future. And Ross Dellinger, who was it? Pete Thamel, among others. Dennis Dodd, who I just was going to respond to Connor about. I've got to say this. Dennis is going to join us at the bottom of the hour. And this deal, wherever this perspective came from, this narrative came from, that members of certain media are being paid by firms that represent conferences, whether the Pac-12 or the Big 12, is really just stupid. It's just, Dennis Dodd is not getting paid by Endeavor. I saw that comment. Dennis Dodd is doing his job like he's done for the last 25 or 30 years. What has happened here is that if a columnist or an analyst or a talk show mentions something that might look like the Pac-12 has weakness, then Endeavor is behind that. Or if somebody from the Pac-12, a columnist, an analyst, et cetera, says something about the Pac-12 is going to get $50 million a year, well, then they're being paid by whoever represents the Pac-12. It's unfair to those who do their jobs and have been doing their jobs. Are there some that are a little bit more out there than others? Sure. But I don't think anyone wants to lose their integrity as far as journalistic integrity by being paid off by. And by the way, Endeavor will join this show at some point. We'll have an interesting comment, not today with them, but we'll discuss that with them as well.
Yeah, that was always a really dumb thing that was said, but that's some CIA mind tricks that some people or some guy in particular was trying to work over and get across, and I guess it worked on some people. That along with a bunch of goofy hashtags, but that's where all that stemmed from, and it was dumb from the beginning, and it is still dumb now. But roll with that if you want to. As far as the question itself goes, it's the backup plan, Colorado, if the Pac-12 deal doesn't work out. And I think, based on the way you asked that question, it's like, is that like a victory for the Pac-12 to recognize that the Big 12 is just a fallback? Sure. But I don't think the Big 12 really cares if they get Colorado in the end. As far as if they were the backup plan or the primary or the third or the 17th plan, they just want to get the teams they want to get. So they might be a backup plan, but if they end up getting what they wanted in the end, then it doesn't really matter. We'll see. I still have my doubts on, whether or not this actually falls through or goes through. I think Colorado's obviously playing, probably both sides of the fence, pretty close to the vest and being calculated in how they maneuver through this. And they're in a position of, I guess, somewhat power to an extent. But, yeah, I mean, it's it's the goal of the Pac-12 schools to stay together, and we've said that the entire time. But it's also, I think, reality setting in that you are hearing a little bit more about, like, well, if that isn't, and that wasn't the case as much a few weeks ago when they all came out with their public statements and we're all together, and now it's like there's been a couple of cracks since then, and if you want to pretend like those aren't cracks and this is all just endeavor, then that's fine. But, I mean, the quotes are right there to read, and I think it's pretty obvious right now that it's all in the Pac-12's court, as it has been the entire time, and we're still waiting. And, once that decision's made, then other bigger decisions will be made.
All right, so there's a graphic. This was sent out, and I don't remember who it was. I think I got this from College Football Plus on Twitter, who does a lot of nice things for us. But these are graphics of the teams in the Big 12. I wish we could blow that up a little bit higher. You have Brigham Young, top left-hand corner, Oklahoma State. These are all, Paul, like the album Disturbed. Have you ever heard that song?
Yes.
That's kind of.
I would say this is more better AI generation that they have here. Yeah.
TCU. Then you have Texas Tech that looks like, I don't know who that is, but good-looking cowboy outfit. And then you have Kansas State, left to right, Texas. Then Iowa State.
That Longhorn will haunt my dreams, though, on its hind legs. That's a little weird.
Oklahoma, and then Houston on the second row all the way to the right, left to right, Kansas, UCF, Cincinnati, West Virginia. And damn, that bear is something that could haunt you a little bit, too. All of them, a little bit of an evil look, and that I wanted to throw that up there. Thanks to Kalani Sitake. That's a takeoff on Brigham Young football coach Kalani Sitake.
The West Virginia Mountaineer looks a little bit like Leo DiCaprio in the Revenant, where he got violently attacked by a bear. Something I have asked a couple times. I thought, I don't know if people have you ever seen? You've never seen that movie, The Revenant. Have you ever seen the scene though? Smokey online.
Paul, I don't know.
It's a very famous scene. You know what I'm talking about, Garrett? Where
yes.
DiCaprio he gets violently attacked by this bear, and I've thought that Baylor should show it anytime they get a defensive stop, and just show that little clip of like a sack, like violently attacked by a bear. And I'm told it might scare the children, but look, I think they need to learn how to survive bear attacks. So I think sometimes you need to get a little scared.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, that's cool looking graphics. I guess, I saw something similar to that a few months ago, but that one's like a scarier version, more like the Stephen King version of it. So that's kind of cool to look at that and see all those individually. I have to look back and blow that up to see some more of the details. But, yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I think the Revenant's probably a little too R-rated for the Baylor crowd, unfortunately. But that would have made some sense to have Leo up there getting ragtagged, thrown around by a big was that a grizzly? It'd have to have been a grizzly, right? But, yeah, I can see where maybe that wouldn't go across for some of the younger crowd or even older crowd, for that matter, at McLean Stadium.
All right. Craig will have off the radar today. A lot going on. A couple of amazing Game 7s. One Game 6, one Game 7. And I use the word amazing for different reasons. Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing if you live in Las Vegas.
We'll have Jeff Schultz at 425. By the way, Phil Venzer from Vegas, one of our great viewers, sent a few boards, and we'll get to that at 4 o'clock on the odds in college football of what programs might be able to run the table in the regular season, and also college football plus and minus wins. There's a lot to get to, and we're glad you're here. We're glad to be back, and this is 365 Sports. I went by, in fact, this morning to Don's Humidor Coffee Beans in the Town West Shopping Center just off Valley Mills and Richland Drive in Waco. Went by there and picked up a box of cigars for a trip that I'm about to make. And, man, they set me up. They really, really did. All of them are Churchill Lane cigars, and I cannot wait to have a chance to open up the box, use the clipper or the punch, and then smoke some great cigars coming up this weekend. Here's what they have right now at Don Humidor and Coffee Beans for Father's Day. First of all, elite brands of cigars. Zycar, Travel Humidors are back in stock. They have 3 different sizes where you could put in 5, 10, or 15 cigars. What these are, they're really nice humidor containers. I have 2 Pelican cases, and one of them's about this thick that could probably put 8 to 10 in, and then another one that you could probably put 4 to 6 of them in. That's what I'm talking about. They have new lighters that are in stock, fresh new designs and finishes to catch the eye. These are Father's Day gifts at Don Humidor. Desktop humidors on sale for Father's Day. Just tell Ashley, Cheyenne, or Carol that Smokey sent you. And also, a limited edition Punch Dad Bod cigar. Great flow, draw, and medium flavor. Great for any smoker. And they have CBD and hemp-derived THC products for whatever ails you. Great, including for sleep, Vita Dreams, aches and pains, mild anxiety, depression, or just good old-fashioned fun. That is Don Humidor and Coffee Beans for Father's Day in the Townwest Shopping Center, right between Valley Mills and Richland Drive in Waco.
Texas Farm Bureau Insurance has protected fellow Texans with auto, home, health, and life insurance since 1952. With more than 260,000 square miles of land and 27 million people, that's a lot to cover. Whether you're wrangling cattle or wrangling kids, we're proud to protect Texans in all Texan ways of life.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Aaron Duvall, owner, Texas Beef House. Why did you get into this business?
We kind of were born into it, and it's been for several generations. Our family's been in the beef business, the ranching business, and we've specifically got into the beef business back in about 2015 when me and my son decided to form Texas Beef House and sell directly to the public.
Aaron, everyone knows about Wagyu and how elite that is when it comes to beef. What separates you from anyone else that may do this in this type profession?
We selected out Wagyu mainly because it's such a quality beef and it's consistent. Some beef, some breeds, you may have, a good animal every now and then, but Wagyu produces really consistently good beef every time.
Where is the best beef in Texas? Your house. When you order from Texas Beef House, unleash the flavor of Texas raised Wagyu from our pasture to your plate. TexasBeefHouse.com.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
It's the Memorial Day sales event at Allen Samuels in Waco, and these deals couldn't be any hotter. Shop the greatest selection of brand new inventory in Central Texas, and now get 10% off MSRP on 2023 Ram 1500 Crew Cab Lone Stars and Laramies. That's right, or 2.9% for 72 months. The choice is yours. Shop our huge selection of new inventory today or browse online. Hurry in to the Memorial Day sales event going on now at Allen Samuels in Waco. Offer ends May 31st.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Dennis Dodd, CBS Sports with us. David Smoak and 365 Sports. I think this is going to be a fun week. I think we might see some maybe movement. We might see some, obviously, the SEC with their scheduling. Texas and OU for the first time without a vote, but they'll be involved. Your thoughts about just this week is kind of refreshing maybe in a way.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, it doesn't sound like I'm at the SEC, but it doesn't sound like big news, but it's big news to them, whether to go whether to go to 8 or 9 conference games. It's a huge decision for them, given Texas OU, given going to 16, given that nobody knows what a 12-team playoff and access is really going to look like, and the money involved. So I have a feeling that they're just going to stay at 8 at the end of the day, either that or kick the can down the road. And you've got the Big 12, which obviously will receive some sort of significant expansion update. I mean, there's too much going on.
Yeah, which one do you think has a better chance of happening? The SEC, as you mentioned, probably won't expand to 9 games, at least now, or at some point they will down the road. Or there is perhaps, we've been seeing in our site, Sikkim365.com, and some of the guys that are, that this May 31st, June 1st, and yet we don't know because, you feel like something's not more just simmering, but maybe even bubbling.
Yeah, I mean, look, every day that goes by has to make the Pac-12 team more nervous because every industry source I talk to says they don't have a linear partner. They don't have 50% linear. And they can't figure, even though they're telling people in the room, we've got a major carrier, no one in the industry can figure out what it is. So is that enough to make any of those schools nervous and that, throw in the discussion of even if they get a deal, is it within 10% or whatever it takes of the Big 12 number? That's another thing. And then the final part is visibility. Where will it be seen? If it's too much on streaming, that could be a deal. So those factors remain.
Do you get the sense that if one was to move early, if in fact that happens, if they actually, okay, let's do this, it would be Colorado first?
I think Colorado and Arizona most likely. That's what I've said for a while now. Because of history, CU is a legacy program, and now is a Big 12 legacy, having played from 1948 to 2010 in the Big 7, Big 8, Big 12. So in some way that would, have to help the transition. But now you've got this public thing where the Oklahoman is reporting a Big 12 source, both Barry Trammell, the columnist there, that CU is coming, quote, soon. You've got Colorado AD Rick George not exactly denying that interest, saying we just got to do what's best for Colorado. And how many times, Smokey, have we heard that over the years in the Big 12 when that's the last thing they say before there is a move, whether it's A&M, Nebraska, Missouri, you know what I'm talking about. Yep. That's usually the final thing they say before they make a move.
One of the things that I feel like is going to happen as well with whoever decides, let's say if in fact someone decides to leave from the Pac-12, and again, that's, who knows, but that they are ready, the Big 12, to offer them a full share immediately, whenever that year would be, I guess, 2024 or 5, that they would, 25, they would be able to walk in the door and get a full share. If it's a Power or Autonomy 5 school.
I think it's in the contract. I think it's a Power 5 expansion. They're guaranteed a full share. So that, I don't think, is even a discussion. The contract is written well. The group of 5 does a discussion. But if it would be a Colorado or an Arizona or any of those, they get full share right in there. So, then the decision would be, is that, you take the sure thing. The sure thing right now is a 7-year deal in the Big 12, which is going to, it's going to grow. I mean, when they signed the deal on Halloween, I was told the ADs in the Big 12 think their all-in number eventually is going to be $50 million a year. And that includes bowl money, playoff money, NCAA tournament money. Because it's not just the number we're talking about is the base figure. The total revenue distribution is what all those ADs just clamor for. And they think it's going to be close to $50 million. If you're in the Pac-12 right now, wouldn't you take that?
Well, you'd love to have something to compare it to, but yeah, because it doesn't appear that number. Who knows what might happen? But the stability, the fact that this is drawn out longer and longer and longer. Hey, what are your thoughts about the Big 12? And there are, in fact, there's been reports, and You, of course, have been a part of a lot of this throughout the way that they might want to add Gonzaga. I know that that's at least on the table, but do you feel like that's realistic?
It's a desire. It has been a desire. It's either Gonzaga or those doing the valuing. I'm told that they're valuing themselves way more than what the market thinks they're worth. That doesn't mean, they couldn't get that number as a basketball-only member from the Big 12. And, just think of a conference. And is it worth it for the Big 12 to pay that number? And I don't know what that number is. I'm just hearing they are somewhat overvalued in the industry. But if you've got Gonzaga, Kansas, Baylor, Arizona, let's say, you could break off and have your own media rights deal for basketball and just earn more money overall. And that might happen anyway.
Yeah, I get that impression from Mac. Yeah, I get that impression. We've talked to Mac about that is at least because of what Yormark's also trying to do with some of the international competition.
Yep.
What is this week like for you? Obviously, there's the media days that come in July, but for you, is this kind of nice to be able to have your hands right there, so to speak, with the molding of the clay, with what's going on in Destin, and eventually, as you mentioned, West Virginia?
Yeah, it's somewhat relaxed. It's at a resort on the ocean, the SEC deal here in Destin, and so you can somewhat get guys in a casual manner. Now, Nick Saban's not going to jolly around with everybody in the halls, but others will. And you can talk to people. There's a reception tonight, I think, where you can let your hair down. So you do find out things. You can find things. So it's nice to see people again. It's like this, to me, the season starts this week. I know it doesn't, but it just edges towards being more important.
Dennis, Sankey has made it appears to me, you're there, but it appears as if I've seen some quotes from him that he would like the SEC to move into a 9-game model, a conference schedule. But as you said, there may not be enough votes, or it might be kicked down the line.
Yeah.
Do you feel like if we're gonna have this expansion of the college football playoff, the good teams are going to get in? Some of the alphas with their brand names are going to have to have less of they'll have more room for error. But do you feel like everybody should play a 9-game conference schedule among the Autonomy 5?
That everybody should? Look, these guys couldn't agree on COVID. I wouldn't expect any of them to agree on the amount of games they play. It's unique to the SEC. Because they've got a new media rights deal, they've got 2 new teams, and would expect to get paid for it. And I was in the room last night when Sankey had to do a confab with a few reporters around the table, and he made it clear, at least it seemed that way, that he prefers 9. We're at the forefront, we can't stand still. If for no other reason that it even adds to the strength. Now, a lot of coaches won't think that. You've got to consider bowl eligibility for teams like, Arkansas, Vanderbilt, what have you, Mississippi State. And then you have to think about how it would impact your national championship and playoff chances playing 5 road games every other week, 4 home games. And so right now, Smokey, we're almost 2 years to the day from the news Texas leaving, and Oklahoma leaving for the SEC. It's very real possibility that the SEC doesn't get 1 red cent more. Those 2 schools are going to get pro rata, $60 million, but right now it's like they're not going to get paid for it. They might in the future, and Greg Sankey pushed back on that when I asked him last night. He kind of said, "Well, check our tax returns in January 2026. Okay, I will. Nobody's saying they're scraping by, but there's so many issues in making that decision that I think it'll just stay at 8. I mean, they've won 13 of the last 16 national championships. Worked pretty good during that time, so I think they'll just stay at 8.
One final thing for you. Dennis Dodd is in Destin at the SEC meetings. The Big 12 itself, with the last year of Texas and Oklahoma, UT, we know the hype machine that has been overmodulated way too many times. But they do seem like they're in a pretty good position. And it might be because we don't know enough about Oklahoma after last year. Obviously, K-State, TCU were the great story with Joey's building at Tech, and who knows what Baylor can do after a bounce-back year if they can, among others. Do you have any idea how you're going to vote in your media poll if it was today?
For the Big 12?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And what about Kansas State, the defending champion?
Mm-hmm.
You just can't count them out from year to year. Look what they've done under Chris Kleiman, carrying the banner on Bill Snyder. Given history, I would probably be inclined not to vote Texas number one. I know it looks like all the ingredients. I still need to see Quinn Ewers take the next step. I've got to see, the replacement for Bijan, which I know that the freshman's really, really good. Looks like the defense is loaded. They got guys at Xavier Worthy and others at receiver, tight end. But you've got to counter all that against, 14 years now without a conference championship. Until I see it, I'm not going to be able to believe it. So, I would, is Oklahoma State there? Is TCU still a factor? Kansas State? And then you add the four new ones. I think it's going to be a heck of a year.
Yeah.
I can't answer the question, but I can't put Texas number one.
Well, that's why we play the games and look forward to it. Dennis Gates, I'll see you in Arlington. Big 12 Media Days. Great week for you. Enjoy it. Thank you. Dennis Dodd, CBS Sports on 365 Sports.
Hope you enjoyed that conversation with Dennis Dodd on a few different topics going on this week in college football. We'll have more 365 Sports coming up after the break. But right now I want to talk to you about Richard Carr and the great dealership that Richard Carr has been now for over 24 years in Central Texas. That entire time building a reputation as the people you can count on for your automotive needs. Run by proud Central Texans. They got a lot going on right now at Richard Carr. If you're looking to buy new, if you're looking to buy pre-owned, or you're looking to just get the car that you're in fixed up, they can take care of all those things for you. And if for those new car lookers, buyers potentially as well, right now, check out the most advanced and luxurious pickup in its class, the astonishingly advanced 1500 Sierra Crew Cab. Right now, save $3,500 at Richard Carr, plus well-qualified buyers get 0.9% financing, no payments for 90 days on most new 2023 GMC Sierra 1500s in stock. They've also got the Buick models, ranked the number one overall brand for new vehicle quality by J.D. Powers. How about a luxury SUV without the luxury price? Right now, you can get that with the Buick on a test drive today. Right now, save $3,000 on the 2023 Buick Enclaves. Well-qualified buyers also get special financing and no payments for 90 days. You get more details on the percentages and the payments and all that kind of stuff by giving them a phone call, hitting up the website, or heading on over to Richard Carr. But new vehicles, including the Buicks, including the GMC 1500 Sierra Crew Cabs, to check out right now. Also, a lot full of quality pre-owned cars and trucks, many of those under $20K. They're affordable, they're thoroughly inspected and ready to finance for almost any credit rating. And they've also got the award-winning service department. If you are in the category of just looking to get your current ride all fixed up and ready to be on the road all nice and safe and have the peace of mind that everything's working properly, we'll go to richardcarr.com. You can check out their service specials and set an appointment for quick and reliable repair. So go check out Richard Carr, run by proud Central Texans. Log on to their website, richardcarr.com today. Call now or go see them now off Highway 6 at the Imperial exit.
The future's bright. The time is now.
College is what you make it. It's a late-night pizza run and all-nighters coding a new project. It's having big dreams and making them a reality. It's a professor who knows your name and your story. It's preparation for your future, your calling, your life. And at Baylor, it's even more. Baylor, where lights shine bright.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive, North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year. Whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street behind the bank.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
All right, Texas Buckeye 1953. Thank you very much for your super chat. We had over 400 and some at one time at the same time watching us. That's a nice number. We appreciate you. We've missed you the last 5 days, but I'm going to tell you, I enjoyed the break. And then I'm going to be out again here pretty soon on a trip to Florida to see my 3 brothers. And then Paul's getting married. How many more days?
I get married 2 weeks from tomorrow.
15 days, and Paul Catalina will be hooked up with Amanda, getting married, and he'll be out of pocket. Craig's going to have his on and off times as well, and I don't know what your plans are. But I think you and I need to go to Globe Life Park and go watch a Rangers game. I haven't been to that new stadium. Let's go do that. I'd love to go and do that. Now, man, I tell you what, the chat room's on fire. We appreciate it. Got a good bunch of good stuff going back and forth. Here is from Phil Benzer, Vegas. Here's the list. Who will go unbeaten? The odds the team will go unbeaten during the 2023 regular season. So here is the list. Who on that list should not be on that list?
I know a team that should be on the list that's not. Georgia. I mean,
yeah, I don't know why they're missing.
I mean, maybe it's just so obvious that they're going to because their schedule is not the toughest that they've ever had this year.
They're over under on wins is 11.5, which means they would go 11.5 and a half, right?
Yeah. So I think that I can make an argument for everybody. And as it gets lower and lower, look, Texas is probably going to have the hardest time because I don't think that they are head and shoulders above everybody in the Big 12, like maybe Ohio State and Michigan might be in the Big 10. Like Alabama tends to be in the SEC most years. Although I'm kind of surprised their odds are as high as they are, given the fact that they don't know what their quarterback situation is. The one thing you can say I can tell you, every team on that list has a certain quarterback situation, except for Ohio State and Alabama. And Michigan's got J.J. McCarthy. Clemson is going to have Cade Klubnik. LSU's got Jaden Daniels. USC's got Superman and Caleb Williams. Jordan Travis at FSU. Drew Aller at Penn State and Quinn Ewers at Texas, and two of those teams don't have for sure shots at quarterback. So it's a little interesting that they're not on the list, but maybe as high up as they are, given that we don't know who's going to be taking snaps there.
Yeah, and, there's a lot of buzz about a couple of those guys you mentioned, and you pointed it out. Like, there's a couple guys that aren't, quite the level of the peers that are surrounding them in that graphic. But, that's interesting to see. I think Texas is poised for a really good year. Penn State is just interesting because there is a question at quarterback. After all that time with Sean Clifford, Drew Aller's coming in. I know there's a lot of hype surrounding him. We got a glimpse of him last year. But interesting to see that there's clearly a feeling around them that he's going to be able to pick up that ball and run with it and toss it around pretty well. There's a lot of solid teams led by, great quarterbacks in some cases, or proven quarterbacks. And, that's the list. It looks like all the top teams that you would anticipate, and you might say, well, maybe one should be, slightly in category B if there was a tier B there, not in that top tier. But, I think that's kind of splitting hairs. I think that's the list that you would roll with, plus Georgia, obviously, if you're trying to pick next year's national champion. And even then, you could whittle it down some more because, Texas, I could see them going unbeaten in the regular season. I wouldn't bet on that necessarily. I could see it.
Well, that could end immediately, week 2 or 3? It depends on what they do with Alabama.
Right.
If they win that game, it sets up for who knows.
It sets up to where they could do it. So, like I said, I can see it. But, as far as what about once they got into the playoff? Okay, well, that's a different story. I don't know about going all the way. But, yeah, that's a good crop of teams that will certainly be leading the way.
All right, I'm going to mention a team over-under on wins. And you guys pretty quickly just tell me yes or no. Baylor 7. Or sounds about right.
Okay,
sounds about right.
Do we know? Is this counting a bowl game?
No.
Is this counting
regular season?
Okay, regular season.
So they'd be 7 and 5.
Very clear.
Yeah.
God, that's the number that you'd
that's
argue
there,
over.
Right?
No, I know. Yeah, that's. I'd say I'd go over.
Brigham Young 5.5.
I'm going to say over because I think that they'll be better than that. I don't know how much better. Again, it's a new league, but they've been playing tough teams for several years, so I think they'll be.
All right.
They're not going to come in all doe-eyed.
All right.
You said it's what, 4.5,
5.5.
I think they can get to
one.
bowl eligibility. I'm very curious about Keaton Slovis and how all that's going to work, but I think they can get there.
Cincinnati 5.5.
Under.
Wow. All right.
When you were gone, we did one of these things on a couple teams, and I said under on Cincinnati. Their quarterback situation is set with Emory Jones, and that's why I'm going under, because we kind of know what he is at this
Houston,
point.
4.5.
I think my thing with Cincinnati was going back to them. I'll say over, but I'm not super confident in that. I think there's a lot of question marks with them. But the schedules matter a great deal in this as well. It's not what you think of the team and all. It's like, who do they play?
Right.
And so I think Cincinnati was one of those where I believe they play all 4 of the new schools, and I think I said back then, no, they don't. They play 3 of the 4. Oh, well, they are one of them.
The 4.
They play 3 of the other 3 new schools, and I think there is some advantage there so that can maybe put them over the top.
All right. Iowa State, Kansas, both +6.
Yeah.
Yeah. Iowa State, I know there's a lot of questions, but it almost feels like, especially after Max Olson's talk last week, it almost feels like they're set up to, prove a little something, not like go win the Big 12, but to have a nice little bounce back. So
right.
I'll go over for
Kansas State, who Dennis Dodd, we spoke about them as far as if he had the media poll to fill out today. Kansas State 8.
Yeah, with Will Howard back, 8, you're telling me that team can go 8-4?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oklahoma 9.5.
Their schedule's incredibly easy, so I could see that. I don't know how confident I am in that, but I could definitely see it just simply because of the schedule. It's very favorable for them. But man, 10-2, Oh, I just don't. I don't know, and I don't feel like I'm even the most well qualified. I feel like it's almost better to not be a fan of the team to have a better. No, I'm serious.
Think so. I agree.
I think it's better to not have any opinion of Oklahoma, love or hate wise, to make a decision on.
I'm
going to
say under.
Okay, that's probably what I would go with. Garrett, do you have any 9.5 for Oklahoma? I'm telling you, they got an easy schedule, but
I mean, look, if they play like they did in that bowl game, maybe, but I need to see more of it. I would take under.
All right, that's why it's there.
10
Oklahoma
wins is a lot
State.
of wins.
Yeah,
Oklahoma State 6.5.
I'll go over for the man.
Every time you sit there and question Gundy, though, that's when he rises out of the grave. Not out of the grave. They're not buried.
But look, Alan Bowman could wind up at his third school, healthy and ready to
for
go,
3,500 yards
and tear it up in that offense.
Okay,
so.
all right.
And they have
a weak schedule,
a very favorable schedule. I'd say that, yeah, including Oklahoma at home. They get let's see, 1, 2, 3. Do they get all four? No, 3 of the 4. No, I think they get all 4 of the new schools, actually. Oklahoma State. Yeah, I go
all
over.
Right.
They'll get bowl eligible.
All right, next team in the list, TCU, which is so interesting, but 7.5.
I'll go over on that.
All right. Texas, 9.5.
I'll go over on that. Yeah, I think they're. Yeah, I think
Texas or TCU.
Texas.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I'll go over on.
So you think they're going to go 10-2?
I think if not now, when?
Well,
I mean, and
how long and how many times have we said that, though?
But their schedule, Texas has a very favorable schedule for them too.
Okay. I think the if not now when thing is I get it to an extent, but then it does get a little bit played out because you can say that next year and then next year and then next year. But I think the reasoning behind it this time, and maybe it just needs to be phrased differently, is they truly seem to have all of the pieces that they needed to have. Years ago, it was like, well, they don't have O-line recruiting. The O-line development's been poor. Then it was like, oh, they don't have enough studs on, or whatever the case was for why they didn't work out this year or this year or this year. Or it's the assistant coach, or it's there was no dramatic staff overhaul this year. Sark settled in. You've got your quarterback situation. You've got your backup situation as probably healthy as it's been in quite some time from 1 to 4. You lose Bijan, and that's, a big loss, but you've got a bevy of 4 and 5-star running backs that are just sitting there waiting to get playing time, including Jonathan Brooks. You've got the receivers room loaded.
Yep.
I mean, they appear to have all of the things that you need to have.
They have the steak
right,
and the prime rib and the lobster tails. And they also seem to have a little bit of that grease and dirt and mud that you need to kind of have it together. Now,
this is the first time I've actually felt like this, though, because even the year that they went to the Sugar Bowl and won.
Ellinger, yeah.
That year I was shocked. I thought
that was surprising.
That was a surprising
year. But even that team had 4 losses, right?
So that one I didn't expect, but all the rest of them I've been.
All right.
So
everyone's high on them. Texas Tech 7.
I'll go over on that. I know there's some people that feel like my podcast partner in particular that they're getting a little bit too much love, and I've kind of approached that as well. I just think some things can kind of get blown out of proportion a little bit, but I don't know. I'm feeling like they're sort of another team where everything's setting up really nicely for them. They bring back a good number of players. They're going to be very heavy laden with experience and veterans. They've got a stocked quarterback room, and, the big question for them is just Tyler Shuck, can he stay healthy? I mean, that was the big thing last year for them. You wonder, what that season would have looked like without it, or with him, rather than Donovan Smith and, the other QB, Baron Morton half the time. Do they win even more games than they won the 8 last year? Possibly, because Tyler Shuck's a pretty good little player. So I think there's reason for optimism. I would definitely go. I would say if they don't get to 7, that would be a massive disappointment.
Well, yeah, and I think they're going to be a team that has amazing type speed that they try to take advantage of with Kitley. We'll see. Also, even Laura Weiss, who's a Tech fan, until Tech shows me we can win on the road, there's a push.
That's a great point. That was one thing they did not do. If there was anything they really didn't do well last year, and I'm sure there's some other things that a Tech fan could add on to that, but a glaring thing was their poor play on the road, for sure.
And they have Oregon, right?
Poor results on the road, yeah. And they will get Oregon in week 2, so that'll be a nice little matchup with Tyler Shuck against his old team, but they definitely have to win on the road to get to where they want to go. But there's a lot of things that are exciting in their favor right now.
All right, let's go down to just this one more team I think I'm missing. UCF, 6.5.
Yeah, I'll go over on that one. Or I don't know, 6.5.
Over means 7 and 5 or better.
Yeah, I'll buy it. I'll take 7 and 5. I think that they've got an exciting quarterback if he stays healthy and Plumlee. I think that Gus Malzahn is as good a coach as there is in the league. I'm not knocking anybody else. I just think Gus Malzahn's a really damn good coach, and so I think they'll do well.
They do play Oregon. That game will be in Lubbock. The second game after traveling to Wyoming to open up their season. Texas Tech, yeah.
UCF. I'm thinking about going under here at like 7.
How about
wins.
6 and 6?
Or you said it was 7.5.
Oh, what did I say? UCF. UCF was 6.5.
Okay, crap. I think they can win 7 games, like 7 and 5. Like that seems doable for them.
It looks like we have a lot of teams. It seems to me that there are like 7 teams. We don't know who's going to be what was Kansas forever, because Kansas is even better because of who they were last year, their quarterback, and what the second year with Leipold. So there's not somebody that you can go, they're last. You don't know who that is. Is it one of the incoming teams? Maybe not. Is it someone that's due for a fall? I don't know. Are we sold on what West Virginia does or what Baylor does or what Iowa State does? I don't know if we know them, so it'll be interesting. But it could be that everybody ends up 7 and 5, 6 and 6, and one team or two jump out there. And a lot of people on the board chat, and I appreciate it. Mansa Musa, take over on Texas. That means if you're taking over at 9.5, that means they're 10 and 2, 11 and 1, or 12 and 0. Not counting the conference championship game or whatever might happen, bowl game or playoffs.
I think 10 and 2 is reasonable. I don't think that's being crazy. I think the one game that you look at on their entire schedule that it feels like a loss is Alabama, and that's potentially. That's not even like a sure thing.
And there's a feeling that with Alabama's uncertainty at quarterback, even with the transfer. Who knows?
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that there's not anything in the cupboard.
You know why it's easier to say it is because that Oklahoma game doesn't seem like as tough of a challenge as it typically has.
Yeah.
That's one of those you go like, well, that's where you immediately go is like, okay, well, where's Oklahoma on the barometer? And like, is Texas favored against them this year? Absolutely they will be. So that game doesn't look as fearsome, even though it's still the Red River and crazy things happen and all that, but it just seems like momentum's in UT's favor at the moment. But then again, Brent Venables could have a huge rebound year or a huge year 2, and maybe they're kicking ass in Dallas. I don't know, but on paper, UT's one major challenge that you go like that team probably should and will be better than them. You'd say Bama. But again, they have their holes as well. So.
Yeah, and if you go back
to what I don't like about this year, go ahead.
If you go back to last year's Red River game, it's yes, Dylan Gabriel didn't play in it, and that was certainly a gigantic chasm that Oklahoma could not overcome based on their quarterback depth last year. But even if he did play in it, he played in several games that they lost, so it's not like that was the only thing that was the problem in that game.
He would have prevented the embarrassing fashion in the blowout that turned into. They would have actually scored some points to counteract some of that, Texas.
I was dumbfounded how terrible they were.
Davis Bevell was thrown into a real situation that he was not ready to handle, and they as a team weren't ready to handle. And, you live and you learn. But, yeah, they definitely would have performed better with Dylan Gabriel back there.
And I do think that there was probably a little bit of that bloodletting after having, not that you haven't beaten Oklahoma, because even Charlie Sprong did, but, man, it was almost like a bloodletting. You got them down, you want to step on their throat and beat the hell out of them, and that 49-0. I remember, I even think Texas may have called off the Dogs late in the third quarter. That could have been anything, because Oklahoma has beaten their snot out of them before, 65-13 or some of these scores we saw back in the early days, including the national championship team in a year or two after that. So that's kind of fun to look at, just at some of that's going on. I did see this note, and again, I was out. We didn't do a show Thursday or Friday, but Steve Sarkisian hired last week Joe DeCamillis, who used to be a part of the Cowboys, a veteran, special teams, but also has now added Wisconsin's former assistant and also head coach Paul Christ as an offensive analyst. That was from Anwar Richardson reporting that each will hold the title of special assistant to the head coach. Paul Christ is not known for a guy that throws it around, more conservative with what Wisconsin has and who they recruit. Why Paul Christ?
Well, look, first of all, Paul Christ is a really smart coach who was really consistent and good in Wisconsin. He he probably leveled out there. And with everything that's going on in that conference, I can see why Wisconsin would make the big shift and change and bring in Luke Fickell, who is a much more of a mover and a shaker than Paul Chryst is at this point in their careers. But, look, they're about to go into a league that, yes, is doing more spread, but Texas has not been great at committing to the power run game and all the things, even though they do have that ability in those guys. They had Bijan Robinson, and last year was the first year I think everybody felt that they used him as much as they almost could have, although there were a couple games that they've lost that they kind of forgot he was there again, which was a problem. So I think he's going to help build their running game. And I also think if you're Paul Chryst and you want to be hireable in the modern concept, you can't run the Barry Alvarez offense exclusively anymore. You have to have some other things, and that can be one of the things that can work really well both ways. Paul Chryst can help Steve Sarkisian get better at what he's deficient at, and Paul Chryst can learn what Steve Sarkisian has been calling and doing really well.
We do have a break. We have Jeff Schultz coming up, theathletic.com. His thoughts about the SEC in 9 games. I saw a couple of chatter in the chat room about the SEC hate. Okay, we know that they invented football. We also know that they also are the ones that came up with how big the stadium and field should be. It's not that. Their own conference is kind of in, I don't know about turmoil, but they're all like in this, where they're blocked up. They ate too much cheese, and they're right now, they don't even know. They're half the conference wants 8 games, half the conference wants 9 games. It's just what I would think would be fair, and again, fair doesn't matter, but I think it's cool that everyone in the Power 5, other than the SEC, they play this. How many does the ACC play? How many
9.
Conference games? 9 games.
Or they will. I mean,
and so if they don't want to play 9, it's their conference. Do whatever the hell they want. It won't hurt them or help them. And I don't think it's going to cost anybody bowl games if they do move to number 9.
Yeah, we had a totally logical scheduling conversation, so they can, go on somewhere with the everybody's out to get us mentality that seems to pervade a lot of social media, because I know that's a small sample size that we're reacting to, but that's just silly to think that there was any digs at the almighty Southeastern Conference. It is an interesting topic, though.
Yeah, from Wayne Gerbach. Paul, do you view University of Cincinnati's 2 major transitions, the conference and head coach, as the main reasons, year 1 being a tough year, or do you think it's mostly because Satterfield is a pedestrian Power 5 head coach?
Well, I think it remains to be seen on Satterfield. I mean, he wasn't at Louisville all that long, but I do think that 1, the schedule's going to be tougher. 2, I think the biggest thing is not really anything to do with Scott Satterfield other than their quarterback's Emory Jones, man. I mean, like, we've seen it at 2 different places that Emory Jones has come and gone what he is in the Power 5. And I don't know if Emory Jones is a Power 5 starting quarterback. And I think that he's a guy who can get you 4 wins. That's what I think he is. And everywhere he's been, as soon as he makes a mistake, everybody's running to get him out. He wouldn't have played all that much at Florida had Anthony Richardson not hurt himself dancing on a coffee table at the hotel after they won a game.
You ever done that?
Not on a coffee table, no.
Okay.
But, right. I mean, that's what happened. Anthony Richardson was celebrating, dancing on a coffee table or something at their team hotel, got hurt and missed a few games that year. Otherwise, he would have taken over completely for Emory Jones. And Arizona State pretty much got him because they needed a warm body. So that's why I think Cincinnati is going to be a little tougher in year 1, is just because I think we know what it is. It's the same way I feel about Florida and Graham Mertz, in that, I think if they could have any other option, they would totally do it.
All right, coming up a little bit, Jeff Schultz. Craig's off the radar. We'll have Tim Fitzgerald, PowerCat.com, his thoughts about K-State and also the week that is, the Big 12 meetings at the Greenbrier in West Virginia. This is 365 Sports. Pioneer Steel and Pipe, brand new location that they moved into. They built throughout last year, but moved into it back in December. Bigger, better, faster, and stronger, because they are now able to have even better, more efficient, timely distribution for you when you buy product from them. And they have, for example, a showroom that's 2,500 square feet that has over 1,000 new products. It is unbelievable what they've done. And what they've been doing since 1943 has been incredible. 1943, they opened their doors. They've been in the same building forever. But last year, they now have this brand new facility, which is on Loop 340, Highway 6 on the eastern side of I-35. If you want steel, pipe, metal, whatever, tubing, angle, etc., they now have that, what they've had before, but now they have different lengths for you, so you don't have to go there, buy the product, you cut it yourself or get somebody else to. They do that for you because it's already done. And then you load it up, and they'll even, if you have a lot of heavy product, and pipe, steel, and metal is heavy, deliver it to the site of where you are, commercial and or real estate. That's what they do. That's why they've been in business since 1943, pioneerboys.com.
Cars priced right, day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, locally owned pizza place that's out of this world. Everything from the dough, the sauce, the sausage topping is made fresh in-house. Not to mention the amazing pizza pillows, the chicken wings are to die for. Try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries or tots, plus great specials on food and drink every single day. Shorty's is also the perfect spot to watch the game with your friends. Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby. Tell them Paul sent you by.
Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide. Affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Spencer Goff in the chat room. Question for me, is Dodd coming on today? He was on with us at 3:30. He is at SEC Media Day, SEC meetings in Destin, Florida. All right, so the Big 12 has 6 teams that make the NCAA tournament in baseball. TCU, Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, Texas, Texas Tech, and West Virginia. All. TCU got the automatic bid, winning the conference championship. I don't think anybody on that list is a surprise. Oklahoma's power ranking as far as their schedule was very, very good. Everyone else, although Texas, man, they were in and out quickly. They are on their way to Coral Gables. Miami is in that regional to host it. But the Big 12 was 6 teams. West Virginia, good for them. First time in 4 years for them to be in the tournament.
I was hoping that FSU would make a triumphant return and link Jarrett's year one, but they didn't. But yeah, I love the college baseball postseason is really fun. And I think especially when you talk about how the coaches have to make lineups and you really, take your chances. Like, yeah, you got to pitch your Saturday guy first, which is usually the guy you pitch second and all that. Yeah, it's, some of the chances you take. I think it makes it really interesting, especially if you're a baseball strategy guy. Levi, he'll be checked out come Thursday.
Yeah, Craig, did I take some of you off the radar with that? Okay, no. Good. I wanted to make sure I didn't. I just didn't even realize that. Great year for TCU continues, as far as just adding some more accolades to what's already been a pretty banner year for them. I don't know where, 22, 23 ranks as the year of the frog or whatever, but I'd have to imagine they've at least approached that territory, because hard to think of them having many years overall better than the one they've had this year, sports, as a whole. But, yeah, that's a good crop of teams that, all – certainly, come as no surprise. West Virginia, I don't know how many – I really don't, truly know how much of the conversation there was in the preseason about them being, one of the better teams, perhaps winning it. But, obviously they had a really good year. TCU goes without saying. And, yeah, there's also some programs capable of getting in there and making some noise. And, fun to see college baseball starting to get a little bit of that spotlight. We'll hear those clinking of the metal bats a lot more regularly coming up here over the next few weeks. And I love the, this time of year as far as college baseball goes. I do think that's one thing that the SEC has really started to, be able to grab hold of is the atmospheres. And I think that's one thing OU and Texas fans are really going to enjoy about, just the move in general. But I think the baseball side of things, that'll be another area where you see a little bit more flair and emotion and fun from their perspective, because all due respect to the Big 12, it just, when you look around like LSU's park or Mississippi State's or whatever, it's going to make for some fun baseball with those two programs joining the fold. So that'll be cool. But good group of schools, and I think the Big 12's got an opportunity to have a couple of them make a bit more noise as well. Here's the thing I noticed: who's hosting among those 6 teams?
Couldn't tell you. Guessing nobody.
One team is hosting. In Gainesville, that bracket has Texas Tech. Fayetteville has TCU. Charlottesville has Oklahoma. Coral Gables has Texas. Lexington has West Virginia. And Oklahoma State, number 11 overall, will host that regional in Stillwater, and they open up against Oral Roberts. But then you move on after that, depending on where, of course, you have the regionals. These are the you're getting started. The regionals will be that goes into the super regionals. Mm-hmm. But right now, the only one hosting is Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State was 41-18, hell of a team. TCU won the conference tournament. West Virginia, Texas, and was it Oklahoma State? Whoever had a 3-way tie at the end of the regular season. So there you are with that. When we come back, Jeff Schultz of theathletic.com, he wrote a column today to open up your morning if you did on the SEC and their debate 8 games or 9 games. He's next. This is 365 Sports. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it. Marcos.com. Online, you can get a lot of nice, I guess you could say, discounts on certain pizzas based on code words. You can order online. You can pick up. You can have them deliver it. Marco's Pizza, one of the great sponsors of this show. Thanks to Bob Mock And he has 5 locations in Waco, and just a handful of years ago, there were none. Fastest growing pizza company in America, and also among the top 5 now brands in America. Marco's Pizza with the pepperoni magnifico. Then there was the sausage magnifico, and now there's the pepperoni sausage magnifico, and you can get it for a nicer price if you go online at marcos.com. Marco's Pizza, 5 locations in the Waco area: Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, Hewitt, and Robinson. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why we take the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott in Conroe at 936-756-7717. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment, and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. Nachos and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
In the market for a quality metal building? Since 1943, Pioneer Steel and Pipe has helped Central Texas residential and commercial customers with metal building design, panel options, building components, and trim options. Pioneer Steel and Pipe's residential line is energy efficient, offers low maintenance, reduces insurance payments, is impact resistant, and carries up to a 45-year limited warranty. In addition, they can also help you find a metal building contractor for your project. Pioneer Steel and Pipe with locations in Waco and Bryan and at pioneerboys.com.
Boozers is the wedding ring store and more. If you're ready to get engaged or already married and want to upgrade your wife's ring for a special anniversary, Boozers is the place to go. With the largest selection of premier quality diamond engagement rings and wedding rings in Central Texas. They have 7 cases with over 300 styles of rings from top designers like Natalie Kay. Choose from yellow, white, or rose gold, plus beautiful top quality loose diamonds. With an in-house jeweler, they can also custom make anything you want. Bring in a picture or drawing and let Boozers create your one-of-a-kind pendant or ring. They can even use some of your old gold and diamond jewelry to create something new. At Boozers, you'll find a great selection of quality timepieces, and Boozers is the place for expert watch maintenance and repairs too. They specialize in expert Rolex watch repair for fine jewelry, watches, custom work, and more. Go to Boozers on Valley Mills and Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Boozers, the wedding ring store and more.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend's Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
So as I get my feed from theathletic.com, and I've told you it's the only subscription service that I get when it comes to, I get Netflix and a couple of them, but when it comes to like sports feed, it's the only one I get. And it's worth it. And every morning there's a great summary of the night before, and then you have some stories that show up on your timeline and your email, wherever. Jeff Schultz, if SEC doesn't go to 9-game schedule, criticism is justified. And Jeff from theathletic.com joins us on 365 Sports. Did you have to go like into witness protection because you might be criticizing the conference that invented football?
Yeah, right. So you did invent football, right? I don't know. I've been writing columns for years, and you have to. Let's just say that regardless of what position you take on any subject, you're going to upset at least half the people. Mm-hmm. So you tend to grow thick skin. But I will say this on this topic. I think because a lot of fans and readers relate to, looking at, let's say, their team's home schedule and thinking, why are we playing McNeese State? Why are we playing Abilene Christian? Why do we have 2, 3, sometimes 4 of these games on our schedule? They want to see more SEC games. So I was actually comforted by the fact that there weren't too many, at least on Twitter or people that emailed me, not too many negatives in this way. Now, I haven't looked at comments on the end of the column. I don't do that too much anymore, but I think many people seem to agree with me on this.
Jeff, my thought on this when, thinking about the debate is if you've told everybody for years that it just means more and that you're the best conference and that you're so big and bad and every game is better, then I would think that you kind of have to because you've set this up yourself.
No, I agree. And I just think, on one hand, I guess you could say, well, it ain't broke, why fix it, right? They're winning championships. Their revenue streams are through the roof. Their media rights deals are going up, breaking records, some in the Big Ten. So they might think, well, what's the motivation? But, you have these games that are basically set up for their own vested interest, in my view. Each of the programs, it's about easy wins to build up their records for the postseason, and easy home paydays. But I'm with you. To me, it's like, well, if you're the best one out there, and if you're so tough, why are you only playing 8 conference games? And look, of the 5 Power 5 conferences, they're the only ones that are playing 8, purely have an 8 conference game schedule. The Big Ten, the Pac-12, and the Big 12 all play 9. Even the SEC, which has an 8-game conference schedule, has this sort of half in, half out relationship with Notre Dame, where Notre Dame plays 5 ACC schools a year. I also am of the opinion that if the SEC went to 9, the ACC would try to find some way to go to 9. But to me, it's wrong. And look, we can go back to the last time the SEC expanded its conference schedule was in 1992, when Arkansas and South Carolina came into the conference, and that basically made it a 12-team conference, and they went to 8 games. They were playing 7. When Missouri and Texas A&M came in 2012 to make it 14 teams, they stayed at 8 games. Now you're going to have Texas and Oklahoma coming in. Are you telling me you're still going to keep it at 8 games with 16 teams, which is the same number you had at 12? So I don't get it. There might be some sort of here we're trying to appease the have-nots in the situation. There might be some sort of, well, let's wait this out and see if we get leverage with ESPN to try to squeeze more money out of ESPN. I don't know if that's going to happen. I mean, there's a changing landscape in cable television right now, as you know. ESPN revenues are going down, not up. They're laying off people. Disney's laying off people anyway. So I can understand if ESPN is kind of saying, well, wait a minute, we're not just going to give you more money. And so I don't really know what the SEC is thinking on this. I just think they need to do the right thing.
Jeff, what are we talking about to the best of your knowledge when it comes to the actual split? I mean, as you pointed out, there's some haves and have-nots, and the ones that seem to prefer 8 are the ones that would be in danger of not making bowl games, and, that makes sense. I don't know that it trumps all of the other reasons, however, but are we talking, is it a 6-6? Is it a 7-5? How could you best summarize kind of the feeling coming out of those meetings last week?
Yeah, I would defer to those who are actually in Destin this week. But my sense of it is most schools are for this. I don't think it's 6-6. I think it's probably more 7-5, 8-4. Now I don't know where Texas and Oklahoma stand on this, although I would think that they would be pro conference, pro 9 games. But a lot of this too, sort of, and this is, there's speculation that sort of Nick Saban who for years had supported a 9-game schedule, now might be balking a little bit, in part because one of the proposals out there, if it's a 9-game schedule, is each school would basically have 3 permanent opponents, 3 annual opponents every year, and then the other 6 ACC, SEC opponents would rotate. And that Nick might not be happy with the 3 schools that are designated as his permanent opponents. So I think there's sort of like a lot of that negotiation going on. But I think by and large, most of the teams in the conference recognize that going to 9 games is the right thing to do. Now, there are the have-nots. There's Vanderbilt and Mississippi State and Kentucky, I think, have all kind of come out and said they're not really for this. And they're worried about being able to compete and basically win enough games in a 9-game schedule. And, my response to that is, well, I'm sorry. You're in the SEC. You're getting $50 million a year, plus or minus in media rights deals. That's your share. That's before you ever sell a ticket or a sponsorship or a hot dog or a T-shirt. And, part of what comes with the value of being in the SEC is you're playing against some really good football programs. And look, if you don't like it, you can always go to another conference and you could probably go somewhere else and have a chance to win more games, but you're not going to get that money. And I think if you ask anybody to raise your hand saying, okay, do you want to go somewhere else and make less money? I don't think anyone's going to raise their hand. I mean, Vanderbilt hasn't raised their hand any of these years. And so that's my view of it. It's like they're squawking, and I get why they're squawking. We've all covered the have-nots in sports and particularly in the pro sports and small market teams and pro sports. But in the end, it's what the situation is. And there's haves and have-nots in every walk of life. And you can either accept the paycheck and, try to do the best you can, or you can leave.
Well, and those who might be haves, let's say the Pac-12 or the Big 12 or even the ACC, they're not protected like the teams in the SEC or Big Ten that just happen to be a part of the conference for the longest of times. And that's okay. I'm fine with that. They're almost like in their own cocoon. That if, in fact, football goes to 2 super conferences, I don't think the SEC is going to, I wouldn't think, kick out Vanderbilt or whoever, right? Because they've been members of that conference forever. They're protected.
I wouldn't think so, but this sort of gets back to, I don't know if any of us really knows where college football is going, right?
Right.
I mean, look, I grew up on the West Coast, and I get nauseous when I think about, I grew up in LA, so I get nauseous when I think about the fact that UCLA and USC are going to the Big Ten. I can't get my head around that. And then, I saw things like Rutgers going to the Big Ten and maybe just because I'm older, and I'm a little more of a traditionalist. So I can't begin to guess what's going to happen next. But, in terms of things like Vanderbilt being kicked out of the SEC, I think the big question in college football right now is, are we going to end up with a relegation system, And people will say, well, no, that will never happen. It's never going to be like world soccer where, you're at the top level and then like a season of Ted Lasso, you're at the bottom level, and you have to play your way back in. I don't know. But the way it's all about money now and power, And I feel for the Vanderbilts of the world. I really do. But can you continue to have this kind of situation? I don't know. And I don't think anybody really knows where it's going. And I will say this too. I think a lot of it is going to depend on the value of media rights, because I think things could change here in the coming years. This is just pure speculation on my part, but not just in college sports, but also pro sports in terms of media rights deals. Nobody really knows if the streaming service is going to work. But the value of cable packages, I believe, might go down. And to me, it was a huge thing when the NFL recently announced that they're going to put a wild card playoff game on a streaming service on Peacock. That's major, to think that there's going to be an NFL playoff game not on one of the networks. And so I think this whole thing, I mean, not to avoid the question, but I just think there's a lot to be learned in the future. I think it's sort of fuzzy where we go with it.
Jeff Schultz with us, theathletic.com on 365 Sports. His column again today about the SEC discussing and what will they do with the 8 games or 9.
Jeff, do you think that how much of this is overall, though, just posturing? Like just to make sure that you're heard on an issue?
It could be. And I guess we'll find that out by the end of this week. I mean, they'll either take a vote or they'll table it till next year. I mean, obviously the schedule for 2023 is set. So theoretically they could table it for a little while and circle back before the 2024 season. But so it could be posturing to just try to get more of the have-nots on their side. It could be posturing for, like I said, trying to get leverage from ESPN or any of the media partners. But I don't know. I mean, unfortunately, most of us can't be flies in the wall in that room. We only know what they say publicly or what leaks out, often with some agenda by one side or the other. I still am pretty confident at some point they're going to end up with 9 games. I just don't know that it's going to be announced this week, but I guess we'll find out here in the next few days.
Jeff, thank you, man. Appreciate the column. Appreciate the time on the show today. Have a great week.
Thanks so much for having me.
Jeff Schultz, theathletic.com, and the story involving the SEC and the scheduling of 8 games or 9 games. My feeling is they'll probably just kick this thing down the road. But the commissioner, Greg Sankey, goes, I'm kind of not wanting to have to circle the airport yet again, or the same airport over and over and over again. Now, he's a pretty powerful guy, but so is the membership of the conference. If this was, who was the previous? Slive? Yeah. What would he do? He just ramrod this thing right through?
They're almost the same guy, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like they're circling the airport because it's kind of a dumb conversation. It's a great thing to debate over and all that, but for it to just continuously, he's tired of it being a thing because it's not important enough to be a thing for this long. It's let's just get this done finally. We've been talking about it for a while, debating on it, going back and forth. Let's get some resolution. And then we can move forward with what the rest of the, era of the SEC with Texas and Oklahoma in it are going to look like. It's just something that's been on the to-do list for a while as much as anything else. But, it's not like a grave thing in any way. Every program's going to be fine whether they go to 9 or 8. Some of them just might not make a bowl game once every 3 or 4 years as opposed to what they're doing now. Others may win 9 rather than 10. On an annual basis. And nothing else besides that's really going to change. I mean, the biggest part to this is really, for me, the rivalry aspect of it. And even still, you could still see the majority, if not all of those teams within a fair amount of time, as far as going home and away, that's another story because as we've documented, A&M and Georgia is the prime example of what's going to take 25 years for them to have played home and away against each other, something crazy like that. Not quite that crazy, but I mean, at this point, we're years into it and it's not been done. So that part of it would be of the utmost interest to me is if I'm an LSU fan, who are the 3 that I can bank on we're playing every year? Those are my main rivals. And that's where I think a lot of the fun debate can be, because it sounds like it would be easy, but then you start going, well, wait a second. That 3 spot can get a little tricky because there's a lot of teams that could be that 3 spot for you.
Who's Mizzou's? I mean, because they've not been there that long. So who do they have to play? Because they're and we've got a Mizzou student here, but again, they haven't been in the league long enough to establish, man, I really hate this team like they did when they were in
they're
Kansas.
in the East, and so I'm going to look up.
Yeah, Oklahoma.
Play
Yeah,
Oklahoma.
true.
Yeah, Oklahoma. Let me see. Missouri's schedule this year. These are the crossover games for them this year because they're in the East, right? Arkansas and LSU.
Well, Arkansas makes a lot of sense because they, share a border and all. But I do think this also, worrying if, a team can go 6-6 and make a bowl game is and whatever the lower tier bowl is a lot less consequential to worrying about whether you can get another team into that 12. Right, and the SEC has always been on the front end of kind of stating the argument of why the other teams that aren't them are out. Because they had the championship game.
I know what you're saying.
The data point.
Who gets in the championship tournament is what matters, right? However, if you're Vanderbilt or you're Arkansas or you're Mississippi State,
no, I get it.
They get to enjoy that jet fuel. But for them, why did Art Briles and Baylor schedule trash for a long time in their non-conference?
So they could get to that
because they went 16 or 17 years without a bowl game.
Yeah,
they were also one of the worst programs in college
That's
football.
what I just said. 16 or 17 years, they were awful. They had to. That's where they had to pick off 2 or 3 wins, or they weren't going to get to 6 games.
Well, and nobody's saying that after their 9, they have to schedule 3. The other 3 all have to be Ohio State, USC, and Oregon.
Right.
So you can still do that if you want. And those schedules, especially the SEC, those scheduling, they've never really been, sad about playing the Citadel. I mean, they'll do it. And the Citadel might play a full SEC schedule now.
One of the things I saw in his story, though, it was a little bit, it did intrigue me, but he also mentioned forget tradition. Tradition's out the window. The SEC was going to try to keep some of that because of rivalries. But, for example, if they go to 9, could that put the Georgia Tech game in jeopardy? Could that game become one that just like
I guess it could, yeah.
So that was one of the things he brought up. But even then he said, still, you're making 50, 60 million a year. You can give up that game.
Yeah, it's like, again, it's really just kind of a silly thing. It's not a grave sore. It's not like, oh, my God, if they don't decide in 3 days, then we are all going to be blown to smithereens. I mean, they're going to be fine. They're going to be well paid. They're going to have the highest paid head coaches and the best talent. And certain years there will be debates about whether they do or whether the Big Ten does or something along those lines. But everything's going to be status quo. The only thing that's not status quo right now is just who your rivalries are and who, on paper, and who your number of, or what your number of games are. And, it's taken a while to get there, and it's taken a little while longer, and I think that's why you're now seeing some of the pressure sort of ratchet up, is because it's just something that everybody would like to have squared away and done with. And hopefully by the end of the week they do have it wrapped up, and that way we can start talking about, like, can you believe that Oklahoma's third opponent is so-and-so, or LSU's playing this team or that team? Oh, my God, they're not going to have Georgia versus so-and-so. Those are going to be fun to talk about when it's factual. Right now, I know they had that list out of the teams that it looked like it would be, and that was fun to look at, but I'd like to see something more concrete, so let's hope that they get there by the end of this week.
One quick basketball notes. Caleb Love, North Carolina, is committed to play at Arizona. When we come back, well, I just probably screwed you on that one. I'm sorry. When we come back, Craig's off the radar with that story and more, and this is 365 Sports. So last week I was at Stonewood Dental. Dr. Childress is just incredible. A dentist that I trust with all of my maintenance and also anything that I need to have fixed. And I've been having that. I had a little bit of a cracked tooth, but no pain, nothing. But it was a cavity, and he fixed it. And I'm sitting here, I text, I think, even the group. I'm in the dentist chair. He's talking about things. We're talking sports. And then wham, there's a needle in my right jaw, bottom right jaw. He goes, you feel okay? I go, what do you think? Although he still even makes that feel pretty comfortable, which is hard to imagine. And we talked about a couple of other things that I need to get done. I have another cavity that I need to get filled probably in early July. He didn't ask me. He told me, we'll see you July 6th. He asked me about some of the schedule that I have coming up. We'll see you July 6th. And so I'm sure I'll get a cavity and then probably a root canal. But I can't explain how much I trust him with what he does when it comes to dental work, maintaining what I have, and also helping me play catch up on what I didn't maintain well enough for too many years. Dr. Steve Childress and Stonewood Dental in Robinson, Texas.
It's the Memorial Day sales event at Allen Samuels in Waco. You can now get 10% off MSRP on 2023 Ram 1500 Crew Cab Lone Stars and Laramies, or 2.9% for 72 months. That's right. Hurry in. Offer ends May 31st.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry, and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon wrap fillets to T-bone to bone-in ribeyes, cut specifically the way you want. They have Norwegian salmon fillets, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey and lunch meat, variety of cheese available, and several options of sausage links, fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, ground beef, marinated beef, and chicken fajitas, and always large briskets available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and family tradition of the Bauer family continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday. A full-service butcher shop and bakery available. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
The future's bright. The time is now.
College is what you make it. It's a late-night pizza run and all-nighters coding a new project. It's having big dreams and making them a reality. It's a professor who knows your name and your story. It's preparation for your future, your calling, your life. And at Baylor, it's even more. Baylor, where lights shine bright.
It takes time to reach goals. It's a truth that applies to more than sports. It goes for your financial goals as well. You work hard for your money, and you deserve an investment strategy that lines up with your game plan. And Chuck Verno, your Edward Jones financial advisor, can help. If financial investments aren't putting forth the effort you desire, stop by today for a financial review. Chuck Verno, 720 North 64th Street in Waco, 254-732-1161. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
This is Craig Smoak's Off the Radar, presented by Alliance Bank. They take pride in making banking easy. AllianceBankTexas.com.
All right, welcome to Off the Radar here on 365 Sports. Taking a look at just some of the other happenings going on in the world of sports. Some of that might include on Tuesdays and Thursdays as we have this segment, some college football on occasion, but mostly going to start to look outside the box we'll mostly look outside the box with this segment, but there will be from time to time a sprinkling of some college football stuff. As a matter of fact, I was just reading an article over on Saturday Down South about these quotes from SEC coaches on parity and on unionizing and being the NFL and all of that. And that's conversations that we've had, constantly. That's a fear for a lot of people out there, is that their team will be caught in the whatever the other league is. It's not the NFL-ish college football league that, is presumed to be the SEC and the Big Ten. And I don't think it's, I think it's interesting that this whole Pac-12 thing and the ACC grumblings are going on. Don't think that's not all interconnected as well. It absolutely all is. But just without getting too deep into it, but like I said, there's going to be some little college football from here from time to time. But Eli Drinkwitz, and this is from Matt Hayes at Saturday Down South, how college football is careening towards the NFL pay-for-play model. Eli Drinkwitz, why are we playing around? Why are we acting like that's not what this is? Which is absolutely fair. Alabama coach Nick Saban, you think parity is here? I think the way Southern Cal, Texas, and Texas A&M are spending money, it hasn't hit yet. What are you willing to spend? Also, Hugh Freeze, we are the NFL right now. We just don't have contracts. Saban talking about unionization. If that's what you want, everybody to have parity and the same this, same that, make it like the NFL. If that's what you want, unionize it. So those are some of the SEC coaches talking about what seems like it's careening towards and is almost inevitable, but now just openly acknowledging it. And, certainly whatever this all turns into, whether it remains status quo or turns into some mutation of, pro football, these guys are going to be involved. They know that they will be involved, but it's just interesting to kind of hear like, well, if that's what you want, let's do it then. And it just seems like it's another step forward. And there was also some comments about how ridiculous it is to judge college football the same way that you're judging college volleyball and acting like they're all the same and making decisions for football based on soccer and baseball and, sports that have nowhere near the same inner workings or external, finances and all that kind of stuff. So anyways, I saw that during the break. It was interesting to see that, though, being spoken about by a lot of these coaches. And do y'all think, y'all have been able to digest all of what's gone on the last couple of years. Do you think that's where we're ultimately headed? Because I remember when we first started this conversation, when the OU Texas thing first happened, and I remember there's all this fear porn about, everybody, if you're not one of these schools, you're dead and this and that. But there are signs along the way that you go like, well, is that really where we're going? And I know that there's the folks that say, well, you're not going to get rid of Boston College and you're not going to get rid of TCU and Baylor and all those schools. But, just hearing guys openly talk about it, I don't think those schools will go away. But do you think there is a split? Where are you kind of just sitting on that fence? I'm curious.
I think eventually that there's going to be splits all over the place. Like you just talked about, you can't treat football like volleyball. That's something that should have been done a long time ago. Because, first of all, football, especially as regards to Title IX, has way more scholarships than anybody else. You can't make another sport that has the same amount. You have to invent something. And so...
like equestrian... Yeah, acrobatics and tumbling.
But you're talking about like one team, right?
All right?
So there's not one team that can do it. There's also not something that just brings in so much money and so much TV interest over the long haul. College basketball brings it over, a month, right? And that's when they make all their money in the NCAA. But all these TV deals are about football, so it's different. You have to treat it different. I do think, and I think this about Stanford, I think this about, to a lesser extent, schools like Boston College or Duke or whoever, is that you are going to have to make a decision. Can you run in these waters and make it work for you? Because, again, to quote Greg Sankey today, money follows, it doesn't lead. And so if money doesn't follow you wherever you're standing, where do you kind of go so that enough money will follow you and it makes sense? So I don't think it's going to happen quite as rapidly as people think, but I think that changes are going to come, and they're going to make it to where, do I want to be on the tier that has to pay their union labor this much, or can I be on this tier that is a little bit different? And I think that that's where it's probably going.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I don't know. It's changed so much in the last 2 to 5 years. The transfer portal opened up, about 5 years ago, and then all of a sudden here comes NIL. I am of the belief that at some point there will be a very serious conversation about having like 30, 35 teams. My concern is, even though that might be kind of neat to watch the elite play the elite, I wonder how many college football fans that care about the game, even if their teams are middle of the road or not, will just find something else to watch.
I think a good number, but I thought about this as well, is like, Does it matter, though? Is it enough to
Not
matter?
if the money's coming from the
like
networks,
if it's
it
Ohio
doesn't
State,
matter, no.
Michigan, and it's pulling in, and I don't even remember what the last number was, but it's like, let's just say $12.4 million. Well, now it's only $10.5. I mean, do you even feel that, and do you care that Rutgers fan wasn't turning in?
If it ends up a trend, though, 12.4 to 10.5 to 6.8, and that's one of the biggest games you'll ever get no matter what, then you wonder.
No, I get that, and I threw that out there because I'd seen that article during the break, and there was just some interesting quotes just acknowledging it straight up of, what it is and where it could be headed, and we hadn't really talked about that in a while because I know you were pretty on, like, they will never leave the schools behind, so you've changed on that a little bit.
No, I am still of the belief they will. I don't know. It was 113 or whatever, whatever the number of teams are that are FBS
football bowl. They're playing bowl
I don't
games.
know. Yeah, I don't know how that's going to shrink, but I still just have a belief that they're going to somehow it's going to stick together, even if, like even Nick Saban and others have said, that if you think there's parity or lack of parity now, just wait.
Yeah,
it's going to get worse.
Yeah, he's absolutely right. If there aren't guardrails, that is, and at the same time, that goes along with the unionization. So it's a very messy problem.
133 or 34 from Sir Blah, Blah, Blah and Justin. What does Saban do when he preaches? He usually warns people, right?
Yeah.
In fact, his own fan base.
It was conspicuous to me, though, that he said, look what these three schools are spending.
Because he's still calling out his own fan base. We need more.
You're spending plenty, dude.
Yeah.
You are spending plenty.
Yeah.
You're not, on a shoestring budget.
You're not going to be living underneath a bridge on a highway.
That's some will probably take that like, why is he talking about A&M or something? It's like, no, he's actually talking to his fans as much as anybody else. He's trying to kick them in the pants, but I'm sure there's part of him that's riled up about the fact that they're, that's one part about Texas now joining the fray, and Oklahoma as well, is there's a couple schools that aren't just Joe Blows. Like they got some money and they're willing to spend it and they're willing to get dirty and do all that. So he's got some more competition.
I know you got other stories. Tony, there has never been parity. Why start now? You're right. There really, even back 50 years ago, was not parity in college football. The same schools usually win national titles. They're usually the ones with ups and downs along the way, but it's pretty much the same. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's I guess your one off year where, like Cincinnati got in the playoff. Or TCU got into the playoff when they weren't expected to. That's about as far as parity goes. But, yeah, it's the same. It's not like TCU won the national title. Like, that's what we would really need to see for parity to kick in, right, and be a real thing, would be to see a Cincinnati or a TCU or someone of that ilk actually not just make the playoff, but win the playoff. That would be parity.
Yeah, college football needs at least some Cinderella stories like there is in college basketball.
And that was always my kind of case against the idea of that. But I don't know, like that was a couple years ago, and I'm like, they wouldn't leave. That just doesn't seem like it would be the smart thing to do. But the more we trudge along, the more it just seems like a lot of decisions are being made to close out a lot of these schools. Yeah. So we'll see. While we were gone, there was a couple of things that occurred, and this one was towards the tail end, but we did have the announcement about USC's athletic director stepping down, but we also had Gary Barta right after that. I don't know if we got to talk about that on the show or not, but the longtime Iowa AD announced that he will retire. We were off. That was on Friday, I think, is when that news dropped. He'll step down on August the 1st. He's 59, been at Iowa as the AD for 17 years, so he was the second longest tenured AD behind Gene Smith of Ohio State, and he's been on the playoff selection committee. He was the committee chair for the CFP in 2020 and 2021, and said that it wasn't just some sudden decision, but he's got a list of accolades and been there a long time. And it'll be somebody else that will now have to take over the Kirk Ferentz, future situation, whatever that may look like. Because as we know, they do win football games, but the style in which they do it sometimes is not really appealing to a lot of the fan base. But, Gary Barta stepping down. So that is now a future Big Ten AD job that will be one in the next year at USC, and now a current Big Ten AD job at Iowa. I saw like a loose list of candidates, but I think those things are just kind of, it can be very hit or miss. But that's notable that there's two quote-unquote Big Ten AD jobs, given what we just talked about, given all that's going on with the separation and who's making money and all that's two pretty heavy athletic director jobs, so it'll be interesting to see who will end up filling those. Elsewhere, NBA-wise, last night we saw the Miami Heat move on to the NBA Finals, where they will match up with the Denver Nuggets, who have basically been just kicking back and relaxing for these last few days as they took care of business in short fashion over in the Western Conference Finals. But Miami getting the job done last night, and so we will have to wait a few days, or a couple of days, till Thursday for game number 1 between the Heat and the Nuggets. But that all is happening, Miami advancing because of what they were able to do last night, beating the Celtics 103-84. Big-time game for the Heat to go into Boston, handle their business, and do so in pretty convincing fashion, where there wasn't a whole lot of speculation about who was going to win that one after a while. But Jimmy Butler had a great game, as he typically does. But the big story last night had to be Caleb Martin for the Heat. He had a huge game for them, 26 points. Also had 10 rebounds, 3 assists, a bunch of big plays for them. So we are set, Nuggets and Heat. And, make your television ratings jokes, because there will certainly be some of that conversation in certain parts of the sports world, I'm sure. But I think on paper, this has a lot of fun potentially in store for these finals.
I don't give 2 Fs about whether the ratings are good or not. I care about two teams that earn their way to play in the championship series.
And I also don't buy the NBA is upset about this. Look, Miami
F them.
Is a huge TV market.
Calm down.
Denver is a huge TV market, and Denver also has the guy who was until this year like the MVP feels
the
like
best player in basketball.
a billion times in a row. So again, it's all
kind of
fine.
like when the Cowboys don't. The guy would be great. The Super Bowl survives no matter if the Cowboys are in the championship game, and they haven't been for 27 years.
There's
the NBA, maybe not. I don't know.
There's 30
Celtics.
other teams that aren't the Lakers and Celtics, and the Knicks haven't been in the thing in so long, and that's the number one. No, everything's fine.
It's fine. No, I mean, I didn't mean to bog down on that. I just know that some people will make that comment, to be sure. But who cares? It's going to be a great series, or should be a great series. Denver, the favorites, to be sure, and they've had a lot of rest, but we are now set, so that will get underway on Thursday. You will have that. Meanwhile, in the NBA, some other news, as Bob Myers, Warriors GM, has stepped down. They're also president of basketball operations, been with them since 2013, but announced that he is going to be stepping down once his contract expires coming up in June. And safe to say, having been at Golden State since 2013, a legendary career there in the Bay Area that will not be forgotten ever in that basketball franchise's history. So a lot to unpack from his list of credentials, but Bob Myers, GM of the Warriors, is moving on. Meanwhile, another finals, and I'll wrap it up here, and then we got some other stuff we could talk about. That's okay. NHL-wise, we've got the Stanley Cup finals that are now set, and it will be Florida versus Vegas starting on Saturday, Game 1 in Las Vegas. Panthers at the Golden Knights. But that was all shored up as a result of last night's result that saw Vegas beat the Stars in Game 7, 6-0. Like Celtics Heat, that was a disappointment because you got to Game 7, and I just glossed over because we're short. I glossed over that because we're we don't have all day, but Game 6 was incredible for Boston to get that victory, and then for the Heat to come out and just kind of like fizzle all that sizzle was interesting because you really could have traded like the emotions of those two games. But then the NHL Game 7 was by far worse. That was not close at all as Vegas beat up on the Stars 6-0 to eliminate them and move on. So, Garrett, as we've been coming to you all postseason long, 6-0 in a Game 7. That's tough.
That was it was very disheartening, to say the least. The crowd was really into it to start. You had
for a minute and a half.
For like a minute and a half, you had Jamie Benn coming back after being suspended, and they couldn't do anything with it, man. It was eerily reminiscent to Game 3, where as soon as it started, it was over. Dallas was disengaged. They had no energy whatsoever. Vegas just mopped the floor with them, man. And I'm really intrigued about this final with them and the Panthers.
Did they play the wrong goaltender?
No, I don't think so. I mean, Audiger's been your dude. He's young. I mean, he's going to have bad games. I could see. I'm honestly surprised they left him in there. Maybe that was like a morale
That's
point.
like a pitcher when your bullpen's wrecked.
Yeah.
And a guy just got to go an extra 2 or 3 or 4 innings because you have no arms in the bullpen.
It was just so. I'm really intrigued to see what they do in the offseason, man. Like, do you try to get Tyler Seguin and see if you can get something for him? Like, You've got to keep Rope Hintz. It's just the future's bright.
The first time whoever wins between Florida and also Vegas will be a first-time ever Stanley Cup champion, right?
Yep. Yeah. There will be a first-time winner, no matter who wins, like you said. So, yeah, we'll have the NBA Finals getting underway here in a couple of days, NHL Finals this weekend. And if I sound sad, it's because it's me realizing over the weekend of how little live sports we had outside of baseball and a couple of things like the NBA. But now we're whittled down now. So there's like just these one series in each league, and it's just kind of depressing because it was so nice during spring to have all of these different things, coinciding. So it's another reminder we're about to hit that summer stretch, where things thin out a little bit.
And yet another year where Justin Trudeau needs to address the nation of Canada and say, "Listen, I'm sorry, we're not going to win the Stanley Cup again this year."
It's been what? How many years? 20-something?
Yeah,
Is it? I don't know.
Since the 90s, maybe
92,
30.
I think.
Yeah,
so two streaks continue.
Yeah.
No one has ever fallen behind 3-0 in the NBA in any series and come back. It's like 157-0, even though it looked like Boston was about to end it. And then in the hockey, teams that fall behind 3-0, it's 202-4. Like it's happened, but so combine those together, and it's 359-4 if you fall behind in a series 3-0.
Well, it's only happened once in Major League Baseball. So
the Red Sox, Yankees,
which is the greatest thing that's ever happened ever in the history of the world. But I do think it is weird to me, and going back to my Canada thing, that the teams that win the Stanley Cup are all where Canadians retire.
Yep.
Hot
and humid. Hot and humid, and
Tampa, and now, Florida, Vegas, that's who's winning it lately.
Yeah, Fort Lauderdale versus Vegas, two historic hockey towns that will be celebrating a Stanley Cup, one of those coming up here.
Just in our 4 straight years that a Stanley Cup final will have a team from Florida in it, because Tampa Bay's been so good.
Great point.
Yeah.
Bob Blah says that 30 years
for the Canadians.
Yes, and he's Canadian. And now 56 years for his stupid team.
Wow.
That's what he
Canadians,
said.
Yeah. That's interesting that keeps going on along. And that'll be a sight to see. It used to be like, hey, I've never seen a Kentucky Derby, Triple Crown. And right now is not a great time for horse racing, obviously. But there's these little things that I've never seen this. I've never seen that. I'd love to see this. I haven't seen a Canadian team win a Stanley Cup. Many Canadians haven't either, but that's something I feel like it would be pretty cool to see because it seems like the reaction would be just bonkers for it, but still waiting to see if somebody can jump up and do that here pretty soon. So, that's a bummer for the nation up north.
All right. Is that it, Craig?
That's it.
Thank you very much. I stole one of the other stories, Caleb Love to Arizona. When we come back, Tim Fitzgerald covers Kansas State.
I guess he can't play in the Big 12. It'd be too soon to Caleb Love. Not next year, so it's not going to happen that quickly, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, what happened to that? With Kansas loading up on another bomb?
No, I'm joking about the Pac-12, but it just went right over.
Yeah, went over my head. Yeah,
I don't think he was going to go to Kansas anyway. I think they want a bit of a longer shooter, but I don't know. That's what my
insights. You can do that when you have everybody else.
That's what his fiance's rationalized over the last couple of days.
That's what my inside sources tell
Sources?
Me. Yeah. Well, I mean, sure, her brother too. Let's not forget about that.
Okay. All right. When we come back, we will hear from Tim Fitzgerald. He covers the Big 12, covers Kansas State, and his thoughts about this week, the Big 12 meetings, and also just life in general. That is next. This is 365 Sports. Discover Woodway, the next big event, and they might add something between now and mid-July, July 19th. They have the Acoustic Night, an evening of stories and songs, which is on the website, discoverwoodway.com. It's July 19th, 5:30 to 10. It's free, so you don't have to have tickets. Acoustic Night featuring Thomas Zobra, Gabe Lee, and also Caleb Cottle. An evening of stories and songs at the Carling Bright Arboretum at the White Hall patio. Gates open at 5:30. This is going to be a lot of fun. Parking available throughout that area, including Woodway City Hall, the Family Center, which is being renovated a little bit, and the pavilion at the Arboretum. If you are looking for an event that you need, for example, let's say that you're starting to look at somewhere where you're going to get married, or you're going to have a rehearsal dinner, or you're going to have something you need to do for your business or a reunion or a speaking situation, the Carling Bright Arboretum and the Pavilion is a phenomenal place to do it. They also allow outside caterers. It's not just stuck on a certain list, which that's okay. People can do that if the businesses want to make sure that they understand and control the food intake and much. I get it. DiscoverWoodway.com also can set you up with hotels if you try to come to Waco because of the silos or Chip and Joanna or the same thing, and you can't find one in the Waco area. Don't worry about it. Just south of Waco, Hewitt, Woodway, you have numerous hotels available. You can find them at DiscoverWoodway.com.
In our logo and advertising, we say we are people that you can count on. What does that mean? It starts with providing a quality vehicle and quality service at a fair price. But it also means we do what we say we will do, and we treat people fairly with respect. It starts by hiring great people, good local folks who work hard with a caring attitude. Our employees are the real reason we are people that you can count on. Put us to the test and see for yourself that at Richard Carr Motors we are people you can count on.
Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive is premier, elite, life-changing experience where you can change your mind, body, and soul. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers over 40 group exercise classes each week, including boot camp, indoor cycling, and more. If you haven't been there in quite some time, you're missing out on the improvements for our members. New flooring in the weight room and locker rooms, new paint and mirrors added in the weight room and group exercise room, with more new machines arriving over the next few months. New free weights, weight machines, TRX, rowing machines, stationary bikes, new treadmills, new elliptical machines on spacious weight room floor. Personal training with Christy London, Randall Corley, and Alex Bach, where you will be encouraged and motivated to grow. There's sauna, whirlpool, tanning bed, and kids club. The amenities are great. 16 tennis courts plus an 1,100-seat stadium court, 8 pickleball courts, youth and adult tennis and pickleball lessons. Visit our website, wacotennis.com, or visit Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8 year old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Ben Erlinson, who'll navigate you through today's financial climate. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Here we go, 516, 365 Sports with Paul Craig. I'm David Smoak. Tim Fitzgerald, PowerCat.com, joins us, covers K-State, covers the Big 12. He joins us on 365 Sports. Tim, thank you very much for your time. We were going over some of the over-unders, wins, etc. from Vegas on the Big 12. What is your take? The momentum that Kleiman had, the momentum Kansas State had of winning the Big 12, and are they now just kind of just reload mode, or what do you expect from them?
Yeah, I don't know at Kansas State if you're officially ever in reload mode, at least not in this phase. Anymore in college football, I guess, outside of Alabama and some of those other schools, Georgia certainly, you just don't, so many players transfer out on you. You've got to kind of rebuild every year. But I like what they have. They return a lot of key pieces. They return some people that I think are being underappreciated and maybe completely overlooked. And they brought in some other nice guys that'll go well with what they need. So I think, I saw Vegas at 8.5, and that for me, that was like, look, I think they'll go over that, but not enough to really bet that one. That one's, you guys know the life in the Big 12. You can lose to anyone on any day because that's just the nature of this conference. I saw Vegas. I think it was Caesars had them at 8 wins, and I thought that makes me feel a little bit better because at least at 8 I get a push. But yeah, 8.5 is a pretty good set. Honestly, K-State's been easy picking the last few years outside of the pandemic year with their over/under. Last year was 6.5, guys.
Mm-hmm.
It was 6.5. That was an easy bet for anyone that was paying attention, and they went over that. And I think they'll be up towards the top of this conference again, maybe even winning it again.
By the way, it's GoPowerCat.com. I mentioned at GoPowerCat as a Twitter feed as well. Publisher Tim Fitzgerald, Life of Fitz, with us on 365 Sports.
Tim, do you feel that, and we do want to talk some Big 12 and Colorado stuff with you, absolutely, today,
sure.
But that they have reloaded at the spots where they lost big-time veterans enough at? We had Chris Kleiman on a couple months ago, and he certainly felt that way, but losing guys, it's not just Deuce Vaughn, but Knowles was there for a long time, and they had guys that were veteran dudes that were there for a really long time.
Yeah, it's easy to look at losing Deuce Vaughn. You lose a lot, but they brought in a transfer that's really going to help them out of Florida State. And DJ Giddens, the backup, was really effective last year. So I think they feel like they have a good 1-2 punch back there. There's no way to replace Deuce. He did so many other things that many people are going to have to be called in to replicate some of the stuff he was able to do, and that made K-State so effective. Let's be honest, it's really nice to have a player where you can give him the ball and everything can go wrong on the play and he scores a touchdown. And that's, the type of player that Deuce was. We saw that throughout his career. At the defensive end spot with Felix Anudike-Uzomah, he was not supposed to be the star defensive end a year ago. That was supposed to be Khalid Duke going into the 2021 season. And Khalid injured a knee severely. He didn't recover till almost the start of the 22 season. And he played linebacker. They put him in space because they kind of needed an outside Sam linebacker that could step up to the line of scrimmage too. He got better as a player, but that was not his position. So his hand's going back on the ground. He's sliding into where Felix was. He's a little bit different. He's not as maybe stretchy and bendy as Felix was, but he's also a really effective pass rusher. And, I think the guy everyone's sleeping on, first of all, anyone ranking Will Howard 4th or below in quarterbacks in this conference needs to go back and watch the games he played last year because he was really good. But middle linebacker Daniel Green played all of last year, beaten up and, kind of limping. He was finally a little bit healthy for the bowl game, not that you could tell against Alabama. But I think Daniel Green's going to be one of the better linebackers in the conference. If I had a concern about this team, it's going to be corner. They lost 2 really good corners. And they feel like they've got some guys, but that's one I really need to see it to believe it.
Tim, it's been a few days, even a couple of weeks, but Chris Kleiman and the contract extension, it's not a surprise to see a coach off a successful season sign a contract extension, but it really seems like he's settling in for the long haul and not a guy that you worry about like around here with Matt Rule. Is like he could have a 10-year contract, but you're always worried about the NFL, that kind of a thing. But what does, outside of just like, hey, it's awesome he signed a deal, what does this mean? I saw some notes about, what it does for the assistant coaching pool. What does that mean, the Kleiman extension in the grand scheme of things for K-State?
Yeah, that was Kleiman's big thing. I want the assistants to get more money, and they all did. And he said at a Catbacker event, kind of the Pep Club tour, and speak of this past week, I guess, that he knows where he's going to finish his career, and it's at Kansas State University. Easy to say, but there are indications that he has settled in. The big worry for Kansas State fans has always been Iowa. Chris is an Iowa guy. He grew up, even though he played at Northern Iowa, he's a Hawkeye fan. And Gene Taylor, the AD here, also was at Iowa. He was the deputy AD before coming here. And Gary Barta stepping down retiring, whatever it was. It's been the worst nightmare for every K-State fan, and it looks like they're going to hire within and skip over what could be an AD hiring his best friend and coach, too. So I think they are both here for the long term. It's not an unreasonable contract. It's one of those contracts that's designed, you can tell that even though it was 8 years, in 3, 4, 5 years, they're going to be back doing it again because 8-year contract, ask the ACC, if you get a too long a contract, it's going to get dated before it even starts. And that's just the way it is in college football.
Tim, there is a simmering, and of course there's lines have been drawn. There are red states and blue states when it comes to the Pac-12 or whatever might be happening, including the Big 12. What is your take on what you expect to happen next?
My thing the whole time has been, once the Pac-12 finally says, this is our number, schools are going to leave. And it's mostly been you guys at 365 who've done the incredible research, Brian and everyone else, on what are the available windows. And there's just not many available to the Pac-12, which means they're not going to have much visibility, but also people aren't going to pay the same kind of top dollar to put you in secondary or third windows for them. Kind of buried on the dial a little bit, if that's still a thing in our lexicon of conversation. But yeah, as soon as it happens, as soon as it's clear they're not going to get the deal, then we'll see some movement. But here's what I've really come to believe. They don't have a deal. They can't get to an adequate number to save the conference, to keep it together. So they're just not going to tell anyone the deal, and they're going to force people to finally leave. Colorado might be getting there. And then they can say, well, it wasn't our fault. We were going to get a deal, but people abandoned ship before we could get that deal in place. And I just feel like that's what's coming because for me, it's always been June 1 and beyond. And what, I thought earlier on it would happen. But again, the Pac-12 would say, well, we're a couple weeks out, a couple weeks would come, and they say, oh, no, we're not anywhere near. And then a couple weeks later, we're a couple weeks out. And look, they've just been kicking the can down the road, and they're running out of road.
Rick George the other day when he said, we're proud to be members of the Pac-12, but at the end of the day, we have to, and I'm, of course, paraphrasing a little bit here, we have to look out for our own best self-interest, and what's best for Colorado is I am totally happy with my AD and head football coach of conference things. Now, it may not come to pass, and something may come out of the blue here, but I would think that he has now become the first one to really say that the most demonstratively, and as we get closer to the end of the summer.
And that's really the bottom line. I mean, if you're going to operate a athletic department at the highest level you possibly can, you need every dollar possible. I saw that some guy on Twitter did a great examination of the income Colorado brought in since departing for the Pac-12 as opposed to if they'd stayed in the Big 12, and it worked out to about a $56 million deficit by moving. So everything they thought was going to happen to the Big 12 didn't happen, and now it's happening to the Pac-12. So Colorado was the first to bolt in some ways from the Big 12. They might be the first to bolt back from the Pac-12, which I think is kind of ironic here. And I find it hard to feel much sympathy for Colorado or for Pac-12 fans that Colorado might leave, since they did the exact same thing to the Big 12 in about 2010. So, yeah, it all comes down to numbers. It's a money game. It's kind of sickening. I wish these conferences would stick together, but if you don't have the money, you can't compete at the highest level, and that's really what's happened to the Pac-12.
Tim, we know Yormark's out there trying to scrounge up every dollar he can possibly find with all sorts of different ideas. Do you have any preference when it comes to the thinking, beyond, hey, a couple schools from the Pac-12, but there's also the talk about basketball, UConn, Gonzaga. Where do you kind of sit on that whole, potential as far as opening up basketball to expansion or adding some of the other teams that have been mentioned? Do you have a preference of, hey, these two and that's all we need, or how do you view that?
Yeah, that's a great question. The thing I like about Brett Yormark is he comes at this as an outsider. He hasn't been baptized or raised in all of the set in stone ideas about conferences and how they operate budgets. And he looked at the basketball thing and said, hold on, the basketball portion of our contract is like 10 to 20%. So, we're only getting about $6 million a school on the next contract for basketball. So $25 million for football and $6 million for the best basketball in the country. And he went out and did some research. Not him. He hired people to do it. And they said, well, actually, basketball's worth a lot more money. And this is what I like about it. I didn't like him moving the media seating at Big 12 basketball to a place where you really couldn't see the game very well, but it raised a lot of money off the event by selling those seats. I'm okay with that. And that's been his charge. Go find more money. And I think we're all like, okay, to try to keep up. How does the Big 12 close the gap on the SEC and Big 10, which will always be perceived as bigger conferences, better conferences? I'll accept that from the SEC, less so from the Big 10. But how do you close this financial gap? He's looking at basketball and saying this could be it. I personally think he might do as many as 4 on the basketball front. He might end up with 20 in football and 24 in basketball, and I'm the first one to say you're not really in a conference at that point. You're in a bunch of small conferences all scheduling together. But if it works, if it brings in the money, if you have a 24-team basketball conference, say the ACC comes open, and you end up with Duke on top of Gonzaga and UConn, and I mean, guys, your basketball product is going to be just absolutely elite, and there will be networks fighting over themselves to try to get in there to get basketball, which I think he's clearly stated will be a separate contract from football. There won't be any sharing. Nobody from the basketball-only school is going to be getting football money. This will be a separate contract, and nobody in college sports is really looking at doing that on a full press kind of way to do it. It's really impressive the way he thinks and the way he throws ideas on the table, and people in the office at the Big 12 headquarters talk about it. It's like a creative frenzy down there trying to come up with ideas. It's really fascinating type of leadership.
It's as if he doesn't have any old or could be bad habits from this is the way we used to always do it. And he's given the conference a spark, an adrenaline rush, and obviously extending the TV media deal was massive, not the money, but huge in giving them solidarity because we see what's happening right now with the Pac-12. Tim, I always, whenever we have you on the show, your story about battling prostate cancer for those, PSA checks, making sure that men don't get behind, and obviously if you want to kind of give your story along the way.
Yeah, so I'm stage 4 metastatic prostate cancer. I was in remission. It came out in January, and it came back. It appears from my test that the initial spread of my prostate cancer into my bladder was cured by my first round of radiation. This is a totally separate spread into my lymphatic system. This finished up 25 sessions that kicked my butt, and I've got more to come. I got 3 coming up in the next week on my neck, and it's not fun. I mean, they crafted a face mask basically that'll screw to the table to hold me in position. It looks like something out of a torture dungeon. And again, I come back to this. Guys, this is all preventable if you just stay on top of your PSA score with your doctor. I didn't know what a PSA score was. At age 53, mine went shooting up, and it was a very aggressive form of cancer. And if we caught it at age 50 and 51 and been able to monitor the rise of it, I wouldn't be in this situation. Because once you're stage 4 in prostate cancer, you never really win the battle. You just try to live long enough to die of something else, or maybe down the line, 10 years, if I can make it that long, someone will come up with something that will actually help me win the battle.
You are an inspiration, Tim. You are. We appreciate your time. Love you, man. Be careful, and we'll hopefully see you very much. Have a fun, big smile on your face when we see you in Arlington.
Yep, I'll be down there. Coming off vacation the second time in a row. My wife's real happy that we got to come back early.
That's awesome. Yeah. Tim Fitzgerald, GoPowerCat.com with us. Life of Fitz on Twitter. He shares his story about battling prostate cancer. He's very much open about it, and also very opinionated on the Big 12, the realignment, whatever additions there might be along the way. When we come back, it's a Tuesday, and John McClain, Hall of Fame columnist, is next on 365 Sports. So we just finished up Memorial Day yesterday, the weekend, 4th of July around the corner, family reunions around the corner, and TexasBeefHouse.com is there for you. Samantha Duvall, part of the Duvall family that owns the Texas farm-raised Texas Wagyu beef. The Wagyu Sampler Bundle, a variety of hamburger products, hamburger patties, jalapeno and cheese patties. In fact, I took up a package of that to Jennifer and Daniel, her fiance. They had that yesterday at Memorial Day, and they said the patties were just delicious. I cooked them even and brought them to the studio once I got the box sent to me from Aaron Duvall in Texas Beef House. So the Wagyu Sampler Bundle. They have, again, hamburger patties, jalapeno and cheese patties, ground beef, summer sausage, and garlic links. That would be great for 4th of July. It would be great for your dinner table tonight. Another family bundle, the Great Divide package, a total of 20 pounds of product, a mix of hamburger patties and ground beef. Also, the jalapeno and cheese Great Divide, 20 pounds total mixture of their jalapeno and cheese hamburger patties and also ground beef. If you want straight up great Wagyu steak, ribeyes, sirloin, New York strips, if you want Wagyu brisket, if that's what you want, you can order it by going online to TexasBeefHouse.com. And also, the phone numbers are there. You'll talk to Samantha, you'll talk to Aaron, and they'll place your order and get it to you overnight so that you can have it and make it for whatever you want the next day, that weekend, or for a special occasion coming up this summer. TexasBeefHouse.com.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit Marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Did you know that 1 out of every 4 men have symptomatic low levels of testosterone and don't even know it? And if you think you're too young to worry about it, guess again. Low T levels can make you feel tired and grumpy, raise your cholesterol, and cause weight gain. Petty Clinic Low T can set up same-day blood screening and results. So if you're tired of being tired, call or go online at pettycliniclowt.com. It's a private clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Affordable, only $165 a month, including lab work, office consultation, testosterone injections, and follow-up visits, compared to $300 or more a month in Dallas or Austin, and you don't have to drive 90 miles one way or the other and fight the traffic. Petty Clinic Low T has board-certified physician consultations and will provide the best form of brand-strength testosterone. Contact Petty Clinic Low T for increased energy, improvement in sexual desire and performance, mood, concentration, even a decrease in body and belly fat. Just off Highway 84 and Old Hewitt Drive in Woodway, pettycliniclowt.com.
Baylor Scott and White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott and White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Welcome back to 365 Sports. It's time for our weekly segment with NFL Hall of Fame columnist John McClain. Brought to you by Pioneer Steel and Pipe, where customer service is their main focus, and best in metal, steel, and pipe for large or small projects, with 2 locations in Waco and Bryan. Family owned and operated since 1943. Read John's work at GallerySports.com and SportsRadio610.com.
John McClain is with 610 in Houston. He's also on numerous segments throughout the week, throughout the country, including ours on Tuesdays. John McClain, Hall of Fame columnist, with us on 365 Sports. John, what is the deal with DeAndre Hopkins? Where's he going to end up? What's going on with him?
Hopkins, I feel terrible for him because they cut him. They could have cut him in March. If they had cut him in March before the draft, when teams needed receivers and teams had money, he'd have been able to get a better deal. Now, some of the best teams use the draft and free agency to shore up needs at wide receiver. Hopkins did a podcast recently in which he said, let's see, Kansas City, Buffalo, Baltimore, and can't remember the other team, all are Super Bowl contenders. And Deshaun Watson has been campaigning for him like crazy. At this point, he wants to play for a team that gives him a chance to go to the playoffs and the Super Bowl with a quarterback an established quarterback. He don't want to go with a bad team with a young quarterback who's not established. And I would think if he accepts a reasonable deal and they use a little ingenuity on the salary cap, he's not going to get anywhere near what he was making. He was going to make, I think, $19 million. When he went there after the trade from Houston in 2020, he signed a 2-year, $54 million extension. And so I suspect it'll be one of those teams, might be Cowboys, Browns, Bills. Something I'm interested in is DeAndre Hopkins has played in Houston and Phoenix. Does he care about playing in cold weather and bad weather? Would that be a hindrance to going with a team like Buffalo or Cleveland? So I'm really eager. He's still one of the most popular players in Houston history. And the downfall of the Texans began when Bill O'Brien, as the coach and GM, traded Hopkins to Arizona in one of the worst trades in the history of sports at any level.
John, was there, wide receivers can be the most kind of crazy malcontents when it comes to NFL holdouts and all that, but refresh my memory. Everything was great with DeAndre Hopkins until he and Bill O'Brien got cross, and then he wound up with the Cardinals, who are not a well-run organization. So this isn't really Terrell Owens type stuff, is it?
No, not at all. Hopkins was, I asked him one time, I said, there's receivers like T.O. and Chad Johnson. They'll pour gasoline all over themselves and light a match to get attention. I said, why don't you do that? He said, this game is hard enough to play without calling attention to yourself and making yourself a target. And it just wasn't his personality. And I liked him. And O'Brien, what he didn't like, and I laugh when I see national media people use New England as a possibility, and O'Brien is the new coordinator. It drove O'Brien crazy that Hopkins didn't practice. He always developed an injury, but he always played on Sunday when he was here. And so finally O'Brien didn't like it. He used his contract as an excuse, and he traded him in that terrible trade to Arizona, in which Arizona got washed up running back David Johnson and a second-round pick they used on TCU defensive tackle Ross Blacklock, who was a huge bust and is now back up in Minnesota. So there's no way Hopkins is going to go to play for Bill Belichick because he makes players practice. And if they don't practice, they don't play.
John, I was watching some of the videos you posted on Mark Berman, who's retiring from Fox in Houston. He seemed to be as steady and solid of a reporter, not as ever, but was one of the best you could always go to. When he reported something, it mattered.
Mark Berman is one of my closest friends, has been for over 40 years, and he is the best reporter I've ever seen, print or broadcast, anywhere, anytime. He just lives for scoops. His last days, June 12th, the Texans had a ceremony today in which they made him the second member of the John McClain Media Wall of Fame in the press box, and it was an honor to have him there with me, and he had his family, and we posed for pictures, and the McNairs talked about him, and D'Amico Ryans talked about him, and Nick Casario and the team president. It was he was embarrassed by it all because he never thought he was a big deal. And everybody knows with Mark retiring, Houston journalism will never be the same, not just because of the scoops, but because he covered everything. Rice basketball. He had things on Texas Southern and Prairie View A&M last week. And he's going to be missed by a lot of people.
Does that honor on the John McClain wall come with a gift basket or any kind of perks during the ceremony?
Besides getting his picture made with me?
Yeah. Oh, it's a big one,
yeah,
John.
The Texans gave him some things that he was embarrassed. Gag gives. Last year they gave me a rake because I had written in a story about one time going to Bob McNair's house, and they were interviewing Butch Davis for a head coaching job, and I couldn't get anybody to come to the door. And McNair's yard had like 20 yard guys, so I went and put on a crummy shirt and hat I had in the trunk and grabbed the rake and raked from one side of his house to the other side of the front yard where I could see in the window to see them in Bob's library, except they had the windows closed and the curtains were closed and I couldn't see. So I just raked back across, and I wrote that story about raking his yard and getting nothing out of it. So he gave me a rake that I still have on my back patio.
John, thanks for your time, man. It's great to have you on again. You having a great summer?
I am, guys. Thank you, and sick 'em Bears.
There's John McClain, Sports Radio 610 in Houston, also Hall of Fame, and member of the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and also, of course, on the committee that eventually decides, Shereen Williams, among others, deciding on who will get into the ballot or on the ballot, and eventually voting for who gets in the Pro Football Hall of Fame that's announced every year. And eventually, that's at the Super Bowl, during the Super Bowl week. When we come back, Paul Catalina and his top five, and this is 365 Sports.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em Bears.
Boozers is the wedding ring store and more. If you're ready to get engaged or already married and want to upgrade your wife's ring for a special anniversary, Boozers is the place to go. With the largest selection of premier quality diamond engagement rings and wedding rings in Central Texas. They have 7 cases with over 300 styles of rings from top designers like Natalie Kay. Choose from yellow, white, or rose gold, plus beautiful top quality loose diamonds. With an in-house jeweler, they can also custom make anything you want. Bring in a picture or drawing and let Boozers create your one-of-a-kind pendant or ring. They can even use some of your old gold and diamond jewelry to create something new. At Boozers, you'll find a great selection of quality timepieces, and Boozers is the place for expert watch maintenance and repairs too. They specialize in expert Rolex watch repair for fine jewelry, watches, custom work, and more. Go to Boozers on Valley Mills and Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Boozers, the wedding ring store and more.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Aaron Duvall, owner, Texas Beef House. Why did you get into this business?
We kind of were born into it, and it's been for several generations. Our family's been in the beef business, the ranching business, and we've specifically got into the beef business back in about 2015 when me and my son decided to form Texas Beef House and sell directly to the public.
Aaron, everyone knows about Wagyu and how elite that is when it comes to beef. What separates you from anyone else that may do this in this type profession? We
selected out Wagyu mainly because it's such a quality beef, and it's consistent. Some beef, some breeds, you may have, a good animal every now and then, but Wagyu produces really consistently good beef every time.
Where is the best beef in Texas? Your house. When you order from Texas Beef House, unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
It's time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Top 5 Pac-12 talking points I have trouble buying. And I didn't want to, this is what I kind of been sitting on for a little bit because I wanted to get to the point where we kind of heard something out of the Pac-12. Hearing from Rick George the other day, and then Barry Trammell elaborated with somebody today on its why he thinks that is. And I really, like we said last week, we have a lot of respect for what Barry Trammell does as a journalist. You have more and more of Dennis Dodd, and all these things are happening. And so you keep hearing these talking points, and there's a lot that I just don't buy, and wanted to go through it. Number 1. The Coach Prime enhances number 5. Sorry, Coach Prime enhances the media deal. Maybe in the short term, but are you, if you're anybody who's bidding on this, going to bet that any coach anywhere that's not named Nick Saban or Kirby Smart is going to be at the same place in 5 years? No, and they know that. So George Kliavkoff says that, but that's only something they're selling. Right? Like, hey, Deion Sanders is going to be on our television screens for at least a year. What if Colorado is so good over the next 2 years that somebody else comes hiring for Deion? He's not known to stay anywhere a long time. Look at his entire life. So
yeah, he was the ultimate free agent there with San Francisco Cowboys eventually. Yeah,
and look, if you're a Colorado fan, I'm not saying that Deion is going to eventually leave you in the lurch, but that's how coaching works now. And Deion is a lot about Deion. And so the fact that he would be a negotiating factor in a media deal where
that's going to go 5, 7, 9 years.
Yeah, that he may not see the middle of for crying out loud.
Yeah, he was given a lot of heavy weight, though, in the recent piece. I'm talking about how his decision could weigh in on what they do, which is mind-boggling. But, I mean, you would need your coach's point of view. Certainly, you'd ask your football coach. Just a matter of this isn't like, hey, we're going to do this for a couple years and then circle back. I mean, this is a pretty long-term decision, at least for the next, few foreseeable years. So, I mean, it's interesting that they're getting his opinion. I mean, they do need it, but to the extent of which, he's going to swing things wildly one way or the other, no, I don't buy that, never did. And, quite frankly, if he doesn't win games, then he's not pushing the needle that much after a while anyways. I mean, he'll be great if he wins games, But if not, then I don't know really what that does for the media deal now or in the future. And his debut season upcoming, they're still under the same old media deal. So it has absolutely no bearing whatsoever on that. I understand, though, if you're the Pack and you're trying to say, like, well, here's a bright spot and here's something to glom onto and promote. I mean, he is, a person, now a leader of a program to, point towards, because he's gotten people talking, no doubt about that. He's brought attention to Boulder that hadn't been there in a really long time, if ever. So he absolutely makes an impact instantly in that way. But, yeah, as far as, like, enhancing the media deal, no. There's way too many other, variables and just length and all that. Yeah, he'd have to be winning for a couple years, and then the deal comes up, and then, Colorado's already getting big ratings, and then maybe they have more of that kind of a push. But, no, not on this one.
Yeah, absolutely. Number 4. That they're in a good spot. I've heard this from a couple different entities, like, oh, we're in a good spot. We're just trying to figure it out. No, if you were in a good spot, we wouldn't be talking about this in June. They're not in a good spot, and that's why we're able to even talk about this. And even if they get this done, I just feel like this is not a good spot to be in where you're, going down to the wire, 13 total months left in the deal at all, when everyone else is able to get theirs done really quickly. 3 of the other 4 people who would do this, and one of them has theirs done until 2036. So you're not in a good spot. And again, I know that you can't just come out and say, like, oh, no, everything's bad, because that's going to make it worse. But I'd rather them avoid this one than say anything at all.
Avoid what one?
Like saying they're in a good spot.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're probably trying to be as positive as they can. Like, if we were in that situation, I wouldn't be like, the ship is sinking. Yeah. Oh, my God. Like, I mean, what else are they supposed to do? I mean, I at least understand that part of it. Yeah. But, no, I don't buy for one second that they're in a quote-unquote good spot. I will say, however, is the Big Ten TV deal done? Like, really done?
Yep.
No. Is the Big 12 TV deal done? Like, really done?
Mac Rhodes said that there's still some things and details to iron out.
Yeah, so, no, I agree with you. I don't think that they're in a good spot. I think that some people probably wish they could change their language or the way that they said what they said at a couple of different points along this little journey of ours, because it did suddenly go, oh, wait a second, and, all of a sudden puts expectations out there that obviously, as that a lot of those comments have come and gone weeks ago now. They didn't, come to fruition so far at all. But I think you're just trying to do the best with what hand you're dealt, trying to save face and, put on a brave one for the folks that are listening to your words. But, yeah, I don't think that I don't know that I would describe it as like a terrible spot, because we don't know what's being talked about. But they're in a good spot. Yeah, I don't necessarily buy that. No.
Well, we know this, is that there could be just something where they're not saying much because they feel like they're close to a deal, or not saying much because they don't really have anything to say, right?
Yeah.
But we have been this way from almost the beginning. There's just a sense that somehow they pull it out. And what I mean by that doesn't mean desperation, but somehow they figure it out. I don't know how it's going to happen. Don't know how the metrics are going to work. But I don't know if they're in a good spot. No, not until they sign a deal and the deal's in the $30 million or more category.
Yeah. Number 3, that this delay is not a big deal. I mean, it maybe is not a big deal as people are making it, but this is one that I do think that would be troubling, in that the longer it goes, you don't have one. And you heard Tim Fitzgerald say this before, in that, why is there something you haven't been able to agree to, and it makes people more and more uncomfortable, which could make them make a rash and maybe bad decision. It might be a bad decision for the teams to leave.
No,
ultimately.
I don't know.
But
they're not going to make a bad decision. If someone was to decide in the next 2 or 3 days they're leaving for the Big 12, how could that be a bad decision?
Well, I mean, I'm talking about
Pac-12 is going to get $50 million a year.
You don't need these, like 10 years down the line, it could be bad for everybody. I'm just saying, like, it could be ultimately the decision that led to, the butterfly flapping its wings and a disaster.
Sure.
So, these things aren't good decisions a year in. Look, A&M looked like geniuses a year in, and they still are making a lot of money because they were a Heisman Trophy winner. It looked like they were on an ascendancy, and they're still the same team that they were when they came to the Pac-12 or in the SEC. They just have more money than they did in the Big 12. And so this could all be something that doesn't wind up working out for you in the long term, other than financially, but it is a big deal, because I think when you start pushing people to a limit where they have to start having a plan B, where they didn't really want a plan B or consider a plan B because why need one? The Pac-12 is fine. Well, it's not fine if you've got teams going, well, we've got to make sure we have a plan B.
All right. Jason Shear, by the way, this whole thing is simple. Every Pac-12 school wants to stay. The belief is there won't be a good enough deal that will force some hands. If a good deal comes, then conference stays together. That really has been the
saying
main
that for
thing.
months.
Yeah.
That's been the message the entire time. It hasn't wavered whatsoever. I don't know about everybody else's messaging, but that's what we have said the entire length of this entire process, and have reiterated it at various points in time to make clear what the stance was. Is yes, the goal is to stay together, but it's all dependent on whatever they receive in return. I mean, that's the story in a nutshell. That's all it is. All the other stuff is just noise, but it's noise that is noteworthy, and especially, the longer it goes on. I think that I'm being very fair and open-minded from the Pac-12 perspective because I don't think the delay was that big of a deal initially. I don't know how much of a big deal it is now. I think it started to become one, though, because regardless of if you need to sign something by next month or by next January 1st or whatever the timetable you feel like you're on is, the fact is that the longer it goes, the more Rick George suddenly goes, yeah, we'd like to be here, but we got to do what's best for us. I mean, he wasn't saying that a month ago necessarily. We had, Kirk Schultz out there a month ago talking about, no, we want to work out, but, we
need to see the deal.
We need to see the deal. We need to see the deal. All of it depends on seeing the deal. And so just like our stance on this entire thing has not changed, the fact remains, let's see the deal, and that will determine every answer that comes from this entire thing. But the longer it's gone on, it has opened you up to where a few weeks ago, everybody had circled the wagons and the Pac-12 folks were coming out one by one. No, we're good. We love it here. We just need to see the deal. And now you're like, yeah, but we're open-minded. We're reaching that stage of it now to where it's just publicly like, we're listening if we have to do that, we are. So it's become a thing whether it was to begin with or not.
Bob Thompson, who I trust with a lot, made a comment, it's been several weeks ago, that said, listen, just because they're closing in on a year away from the deal, a lot of people are focusing on, man, you got to have one before the year is up. And he keeps saying, no, you don't. And that's the one thing that keeps me from thinking that the dam will break, and who knows, maybe it just pops in the next day or two. All right?
Yep. Number 2, streaming is where you need to be in 2024. I think it's probably where you need to be in 2035. Really, in the next decade, everything's going to change. I think we're going to see, we're seeing it right now. There's going to be a gigantic shift in how all of this is delivered and distributed and who owns what and where and the way that companies are going to merge and things are going to be grabbed. So they might be ahead of the curve too far, which we've talked about a lot. But I think when you see how the writers are on strike right now, the actors are about to go on strike, the directors are all going to go on strike. That's a bunch of people who make a bunch of money and a bunch of content for all these companies that don't just do sports that they're going to have to pay. There are rights.
But wouldn't that open up needs to broadcast games to fill the time?
Yeah, but it's still money. Money and people, everybody wants to be made whole at the same time. And, as much as it seems like these companies have a big, gigantic vat of money that they can just keep going into, eventually, the CEO has to make his money. And so the shareholders have to make their money.
It's like all ESPN people who are getting cut, laid off, furlough, whatever the words are, early retirement, yet they're going to pay 5 or 6 guys $8 to 10, 12 million a year.
So all those things have to get worked out.
Yeah, they cut all those people, and Pat McAfee's just making minimum wage.
Yeah.
So and his whole crew of folks,
and he'll take care of those guys because he's making so much money. He takes care of his staff. All right.
No, I've been asking the question the entire time, especially when the Pac was getting dunked on, sort of early on about the streaming part of it. It's like, who's to say that they're not on the cutting edge of things? Mm-hmm. And I'll pose this question. This isn't very Big 12 friendly, but I don't care. I'm not trying to play team here. If you add more schools, what are the likelihood that those schools end up on streaming?
Pretty likely.
99%, because where else are they going to go? You've only got the same spots you've got. So if you add more teams, then you still got the same amount of spots. And but you've now got 2 more teams to fill another extra game each week. So where's that going? That bad boy's going on ESPN Plus.
Well, or you're going to take those teams. So say say Colorado and TCU is the best game that week in the conference, right? Well, that means that the game that you thought Iowa State and Kansas will get, like, somebody's getting pushed to streaming, and it's not just necessarily going to be the new teams.
But the thing is that that's all very true, but the problem is that you don't have any idea of what this looks like. So the question is like, what games on Prime, what games on this, what games on that, and then what does that leave over? And that's where I think your big question marks are, and why it leads the streaming part to be a little bit more of an uncertainty than just like, you're going to have your occasional games on there.
Roll Tide Horned Frog. I think the streaming market for sports isn't quite there yet. You're right,
Agreed
Paul,
on that.
in the short term.
We agree with that. It's coming slowly but surely, but it's not to where it's like, we're all just diving into streaming on a regular basis to watch all of our college football. Yeah.
No, it's just like it's one of like they're ahead of the curve on the concept on their networks. They just couldn't execute it. Yeah. I mean, that's part of the problem with the Pac-12. Like, you have a great idea, it's just it doesn't exist yet. And number one, that they aren't worried that this will happen again in 5 years. I know that this is not something.
Are they saying that?
No, I was saying this, but this is like a lot of this is. I just wanted to throw this out there. This is not necessarily.
Well, so this isn't their talking points. This is yours.
Well, this one in particular, but I needed to get 5. But I wanted to get into this. All of this, or that they. I think this is probably this case for everybody, though, that you have to constantly be worried that this is going to happen again and again and again right now.
No, there'll be realignment next year. There'll be realignment with a conference that you think won't have it 3 years from now. I agree.
Well, I just brought up earlier, I was asking y'all the question right off the radar about what y'all think this is all headed towards. And so if it's headed towards where you think it is, then, there will be much more to come. But I think you look no further than the Big 12, thinking about Gonzaga and UConn and any other number of reported teams, and thinking about basketball finances and thinking about all these things. Why are they doing that? Because they know that there's more change coming, and they're trying to stave it off as best as they possibly can, because they know they're not going to catch up to a couple of other conferences money-wise. They're trying to close that gap as best they can, but they know that it's not over, the change that's occurring. And those are positions not for right now. Those are positions as much as anything for the next several years, and trying to secure this thing, just like trying to get Pac-12 schools to get your West Coast time zone and all of that. So, I don't know that I've really seen anybody say they're not worried about what happens. I think everybody is just so focused on getting this done for the Pac-12, and then we'll worry about that later. You can only do one thing at a time, right? You can't worry about 5 years from now if you don't even know where you're living 2 years from now. So I think that's the focus, and you worry about this other part, this number one here, once you get everything all set up for the foreseeable future.
All right, Paul, thank you very much. Graham, Jack, Garrett, Emery, Levi, all in the middle of what we do every day. We appreciate everyone who was there at the beginning of the show. Some of them have left to move on because they have a life, right? And now all of us will move on here in a minute. Hey, don't forget Sports Tonight at 10:30 on the CW. A lot of it discussing what the SEC, the meetings, the conference schedule, the number of games, etc., and the Big 12, what's simmering with them. That is a part of Sports Tonight. I brought this in, yet another artifact. What is this, Paul? A BlackBerry cell phone. I found that in my bottom right-hand drawer. It is about to be thrown into a dumpster somewhere. I found a cassette recorder last week and a BlackBerry. Amazing. It's going to be a good paperweight. For Craig and Paul, thanks to our great sponsors. Am I hearing something?
Yeah.
Great to our great sponsors, and also you. Good night, 365 Sports.
Visit us at idealmri.com or call us at 833-IDEAL-MRI.